for having all of us here and having this event.
Yes.
Thank you.
We all say that we're going to do something, we want to do something, hence the reason that you're all here, and hence the reason that they're here. Every person that came here to speak today, they had other things to do, to show you how important this is to all of us. It's important for you to be here, to act. It's important for these men and women to be here and help us do that. And I need to say this. When they leave here today, it's our job to support them. They're in there supporting us. They're in the trenches. They're doing their job there. We need to support them every single day. Okay? So when you see them out there, thank them. And by all means, thank them with your pocketbook. Help them out. What they do is not free. Okay? We're going to be talking about topics this evening, federal and state, so there will be plenty of time for all of us to answer questions.
And that being said, the topics we're going to talk about, we have already some predetermined questions, correct, Randy?
Yes, we do.
That we're going to go through, and at some point, if we have time, we might open up questions. Remember a couple things, guys. We are recording this, and we'll try to edit some of it down, and then we're going to put it out, so it's a good, concise video and not, dragging on and so on. So if you're going to be asking questions, then please try to, keep them pertinent to the topics and those type of things, and that way, the whole idea of this is to get the information out there. Everybody has a short attention span nowadays, so the less rambling and those kind of things that we have, the best way to transmit that information and get questions answered for everybody. So I'll get us started. My name is Mike Barber. I'm the owner of Top Gun. I want to appreciate all of you for coming tonight to participate and be here, and we want to thank our guests. We have Brenden from Great Lakes Gun Rights. They've been doing tons of fighting for us at the state level to promote our rights and to protect them as well. And at the local level, they're our strongest advocate right now. So please welcome Brenden. And like Randy said, guys, it's important to spread the word. You get their emails, share them with your friends, sign up for their emails if you're not there, and done that, and support them financially when you can, and so on. So, and then we also have Jamie Thompson. She is our District 28 state representative. So that encompasses Taylor and where down to, Jamie?
Taylor all the way down to Frenchtown. So
Down to Frenchtown.
Taylor, Brownstown, Flat Rock, Berlin Township, Frenchtown.
Okay. And this is Jamie's first term, and she's jumping into it and right away and trying to help protect our gun rights as well. And then we have 2A EDU from YouTube that is out there helping these guys spread the word and helping keep you guys up to date with a lot of the state updates and laws and things that are being proposed and so on, and to try to educate all of us here in Michigan. And he's the majority of his focus has been at a state level as well, local and state level. So again, find him on YouTube and social media and support him as well, please. But that's we'll get this going, and I'll pass over to Randy, and he'll ask some of the questions and hopefully get this a lot of good information out there. All right. So thanks for everybody for coming.
All right, so what I'm going to do is we're going to focus on the panel here. A lot of these questions are going to be wide open, so any one of them can ask. If there's anything additional, like I said, this is going to be a little bit of an open forum, and they asked for that. They wanted your questions. There's a lot of information that's out there that we're getting that maybe some of it's not true, maybe some of it's hidden. This is an opportunity for us to get the information that they have. They are in Lansing, they are doing their job. So if you have questions, please feel free to ask those questions. Okay, we'll get this started right off here. There are 3 bills that we know that have been signed by the governor at this point. 3 anti-gun bills, and one of our biggest questions is time frame. Okay, when are these going to take effect? Is this something that's immediate that we have to worry about and concern ourselves about now, or is this something that's going to be later on down the road?
Well, I'll start off this. We should always be concerned because we're talking about specific bills today, but this is really just a battle of good versus evil. And evil's always going to prevail when good men do nothing, so we need to start right now and stay focused because they're just getting started on Lansing. Now, I've shown on my channel quite a few times, there's a procedure when these bills are passed for them to take immediate effect. In the House, not so much. Just watch one of the House sessions, you'll see what I'm talking about. It's a shame. Luckily, the Senate still has some decorum. So of this initial package, so far, they have not taken immediate effect, which means they will take place, go into effect, and become actual, binding law 90 days after sine die, which that's basically when the session leaves for the year. So we're looking at about April-ish of next year for what's been signed so far.
Well, and a caveat on that too, I'd be interested to hear if Representative Thompson has any updates on this too. There are rumors swirling that Democrats may adjourn early for a couple reasons to get certain laws into effect earlier. And there's a certain governor of a certain state who thinks that she might want to run for president, Gretchen Whitmer, who they may want to move the primary up to help her. And of course, they passed that law earlier this year. So if they do that, I've heard as early as adjourning this summer. And that's a very good possibility because Democrats have two state representatives that are running for mayor. Kevin Coleman is running for mayor of Westland, and Lori Stone is running for mayor of Pontiac.
I'm not 100%
I lose track of the Democrats.
Yeah.
But they will effectively not have a majority anymore if both of them win in November. Which means that there's really no purpose for them to be in Lansing. What we've seen consistently is that when the Democrats don't have the votes, they just randomly cut down and don't hold votes for the day. So I would not be surprised at all if they just said, well, we're not going to have majorities anyway, so we may as well not be there. And that lets us take our victory lap sooner on our gun control bills, our repeal of right to work, our you name it, all the various things that they believe that they want to run on next year. They want to get those enacted as soon as possible.
So Brenden is 100% correct. There are rumors of that. The likelihood is very possible. Micah was correct, and that is what the time frame is supposed to look like after session ends. But because right now in Michigan, the Democrats hold the House and the Senate. Here I represent the House, so the Speaker of the House, Joe Tate, he has the power and authority, unfortunately, to say session is over. And it does happen today. We had no votes in the House today because they were trying to get something through that they didn't have enough votes for. And they weren't going to get the votes from us. So we sat around for about an hour and then the session was closed and we were adjourned. So that's kind of how it works. They can say, we're done with this. We don't have anything else to vote on. I think they're going to be pushing through for the budget. Got some insane stuff in the budget that we're not going to vote yes on, but they have the majority. So it's going to pass. I'd say be on your toes. Be on your toes and be ready for anything to be possible.
And I wanted to throw in one more quick thing. Representative Thompson, I've met so many representatives in Lansing, and I know a lot of you think that they're all terrible. They're actually not. And there's a very, very slim majority of Democrats in Lansing right now. Meaning if one of them wouldn't show up, they can't pass the votes. It's that slim of a majority. And they're just running roughshod over so many of the rules, and they're making it as difficult as possible for freedom fighters like Jamie, and she's my favorite rep in the state of Michigan, guys. She's a freedom fighter, she's super, super smart, and she's a really nice person. But they're making it hard on people like her. So you all need to rally around if she's your state representative, or if you have a good one, because all of the published rules that you think they have to follow, it's not really happening right now. So just keep all that in mind as we continue.
Right, when Micah mentioned decorum, so decorum is how you present and how you carry yourself, and then you have House rules. So with the rules of the House, we are in a position that the Speaker of the House controls everything, and the one who holds the gavel controls everything. So even if we have rules of the House, they don't have to follow those rules. So when we make an amendment to something, they don't follow the rules that they have to count how many people stand for that amendment to take place, or for even something to take immediate effect. Now, as he said, the Senate is being a little bit more reasonable, and they're not acting as wild as the House is right now. But the House is wild. It's wild.
She stood at the podium before to seek recognition. And decorum would be to let her speak because she's representing 90,000 of us. and they'll just look the other way.
They
They'll say,
turn your,
sit
they
down.
turn your speaker off,
So,
they gavel you out.
What I'll say to that too is that this is an important lesson for Republicans as well. Is that frankly the Democrats are justifying this because this is what the Republicans did before the Democrats took over.
That's correct.
And this is what they did to conservative pro-gun voices. Last year, I was working with a state representative trying to get a vote on constitutional carry, and the House of Representatives to get every politician on the record before they went up to voters to find out where they really stood on the Second Amendment. This may surprise you, but some Democrats don't like running on gun control. They like to hide. They like to hide their true intentions until they actually get to Lansing, and then they go hog wild. But getting a vote on an actual pro-gun piece of legislation where they actually have to take a true position on it, not a stupid resolution that says, I support the Second Amendment. Oh, Democrats will vote for that crap all day long. But actually getting a vote to expose where they stand on an issue like constitutional carry or the repeal of registration separates the wheat from the chaff. But Republican leadership killed our attempt to get a vote. Of course, they said, well, you're going to put the majorities at risk. Well, we all see what happened there. Republicans lost the majorities anyways because they refused to actually fight for the things that we all believe in and cost them votes.
So resolution is where typically, and most likely the majority of the time involves honoring someone, honoring an organization, or honoring a day. So someone might make a resolution, like right now a resolution was made for May as Mental Health Awareness Month. Or they could make a resolution. And the interesting thing is that 99.9% of resolutions are just voice votes. But now the Democrats are trying to get people on record where they're doing a roll call vote. And roll call means that you actually have to be on record and push your yes or no button. So there's a documented record of your vote. They're focusing on getting us on record for resolutions that involve just the craziest stuff that you can imagine.
Well, you guys are anti-library now.
Yes,
So.
yes, anti-library, that was one of the things, it was for a library, because they wanted to make a resolution for Librarian Appreciation Month. Great, that sounds perfect. We would all agree with that, right? But then the resolution and the speech had to go into librarians making sure that it was a safe, inclusive space, that everyone could be who they wanted to be, and then we've got these rogue sex ed classes in our school, and we're trying to get these books that have pornography out of our school. So you just took something so simple as appreciating the hard work of librarians, and you had to make it political. And then after your speech, you have to say, I want a record roll call vote to see who stands with me. And that's what they're fighting. That's what they're fighting for. And here we're sitting back losing our rights and losing our state.
Yeah, it sounds like a
Horse
fun
and
place.
pony show.
That sounds like a fun place.
Pony show, yes. Okay, every one of us, a lot of you have talked with me and talked with other people. The bills that we have that have already been through, signed by the governor, we just spoke on some of those. They sound good, they sound fluffy on the outside. They sound like they're going to save lives. However, there's always hidden agendas. And I know that the three of you have had these questions before. So if you would, help us to understand some of those hidden agendas that would be in these bills.
You want to pick apart, I mean,
which
these
bill are you?
guys know
Well,
it.
I have
These guys know
the three
words
that
like,
we're talking, the one that
Yeah.
is most effective is that red flag law.
Yeah,
Because that sounds so fluffy
Yeah.
on the outside.
yeah. So, yeah, the red flag bill will allow a very wide range of people to file a petition against you in any court in the state saying that you are a danger to yourself and others without you present. And you won't know about it until law enforcement shows up to your door to gather your firearms.
At 3 a.m.
At 3 a.m., 5 a.m., they could come at any time. They run roughshod. That's the word of the week, is roughshod. I've been using that a lot to describe what the Democrats are doing right now. Overdue process. The Democrats will bill this as concerned. We need to solve this mental health crisis. But here's the stupid thing of it all is that they actually show that they don't care about mental health because they're simply taking firearms away from these people and leaving them home with all their other weapons, and actually not getting them help. And in fact, during the committee hearings, they made it very clear that they don't want this to be about mental health. They made it all about confiscating the firearms and making it as difficult as possible to get your rights back. You get a hearing after the fact. That's fast backwards for the American judicial system. In the American judicial system, you get to face your accuser. You are innocent until proven guilty, and you have to be, basically proven in a court that you do not deserve to have your rights. They want to take away your guns first, and then due process second. And what's ironic about it all is that they're saying, well, Michigan just needs to pass one of these red flag laws. That would have stopped the shooter at Michigan State. It's nonsense. The police there had enough interaction with the shooter there that they could have gotten him on a wide range of other issues that the prosecutor actually would have prosecuted. And I'm not necessarily talking about the last one that made him a felon, or that would have made him a felon. But regardless of the fact, earlier this year there was a shooting in California, which has a red flag law. We had the shootings in Illinois last year, which has a red flag law. We had a shooting in New York State, which has a red flag law. And yet we're being told that if we just had a red flag law, these kinds of shootings would not happen here. Yet they happen in states with red flag laws all the time. And what do we hear? Oh, well, the red flag law wasn't used properly in these states. We just need a red flag law.
We have laws currently to petition someone that is at harm to themselves or to someone else. That is a very easy enough process. I'm a nurse, I have a background in having to petition patients myself that I would have to send for psychiatric care. A husband, a wife, a mother, a father, people can petition their loved ones. There's also PTOs that would relate to that as well. This has nothing to do with mental health. This has everything to do about gun confiscation. And every police officer that I have spoke to, and I don't want to throw them under the bus, but I will say from Monroe County to the tip of Taylor, they're not in support of this because that's putting their officers in danger. They're not in support of it. I mean, how would you feel, knocking on someone's door who is deemed to be crazy and saying, sorry, sir, I need to come in and take your firearms. And that person's not expecting you, or that person, is thinking someone's breaking into their home. And it is detailed out. It is supposed to be a person that has a certain relationship with you. So rumors have flied around that your neighbor may not like you and say, and I don't want people to think that because that's not supposed to be the case. Your neighbor is not supposed to be allowed to call the police on you because you pissed them off or they don't like which party you are. It's supposed to be
But it could be an ex-dating partner.
someone you dated 20 years ago.
Went on one date with them, and you didn't even have to have sexual relations.
The only
Just
one
the
I think it doesn't
anticipation.
include is a neighbor, but it can be
It's a whole list of relatives. It could be your cousin, your grandparents. It could be your ex-wife.
Mental health professional.
mental health,
Any
doctor.
police officer.
So if you're
Police
seeking
officer.
treatment from someone, now it says that they're supposed to abide by the HIPAA laws or whatever, but what
How's that gonna
mental
work?
health professional is not going to possibly want to follow that if they could possibly be the one to stop a shooting? And also, what person is going to want to seek treatment? This happened under the Obama administration with where they started dumping the names of people who were veterans, basically veterans, into the prohibited persons list without due process. It had a chilling effect for veterans to seek treatment. Why would a veteran who's suffering through PTSD, who's not a threat to himself or others, seek treatment if he knew that he was going to lose his gun rights in the process?
That is something that we have not talked about in your videos because unfortunately, so many times veterans are stigmatized as having PTSD, even if they do not. We never talked about that. That's a whole.
It makes people afraid.
That's not good for business.
And here's one other issue too I want to remind you guys of. They're playing word games with this. The red flag order is technically considered a civil infraction. But wait, that's actually a bad thing for you because you've not only lost all of your due process, like Brenden and Jamie have talked about, but you don't get a lawyer appointed to you because you don't get that in a civil case. Now,
Pay for your own attorney.
Yes, you have to pay for your own attorney when you come back to appeal, so somebody can allege something of you. It's not literally everybody, but there's a lot of people that do have standing to red flag you. There's a secret, it's called an ex parte hearing, you don't know about it. Take the guns first, then due process, which is no due process at all, on your dime.
Isn't it 24 hours the judge has to hear the case too?
The judge has to hear the case in 24 hours.
Anyone live in Wayne, we all live in Wayne County here? Do you see a judge seeing a case and hearing a case in 24 hours? What is the waiting list to get your CPL in Wayne County? So there's a huge problem with that. They're not gonna hear these cases in 24 hours.
You don't get to provide exculpatory evidence in your defense. So it's he said, she said. Now, if you violate any of the provisions, say you get red flag, if you violate the provisions, then it quickly becomes criminal. And on subsequent offenses, it quickly keeps escalating the criminal penalties, but they started off as a civil thing so that you don't get even any type of court-appointed lawyer or public defender if you're broke.
Yeah.
That's pretty scary.
Yeah, there was one Democrat state representative, Kimberly Edwards, who was actually concerned about how these laws could potentially be disproportionately affect minority communities, and it absolutely will, and just poor communities in general too, who cannot afford their own representation.
I mean, one more thing, the legal standard to red flag somebody is lower. It's lower than beyond any reasonable doubt like it is in criminal court. So, throw that in there too.
And we'll come back to that one about the legal end of it in just a moment.
Yeah.
I have a statement and a question about that.
Yeah.
Under the
Talk about
safe
the other
storage
two?
law.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, we want to.
Yeah, that's safe storage law.
Lock up your safety law. That's what we like to call it. Safe instead of safe storage, because there's nothing safe about it. Yeah, just quick on that is that, of course, you know, I get questions from the media. It's like, well, why are you opposed to safe storage? Why are you opposed to laws that require people to lock up their guns? Well, my problem is that, first of all, it assumes that the government knows best. It assumes that we're going to create a blanket policy across the whole state where everyone has to have their firearms saved or stored the exact same way. I think we know that that's not realistic. First of all, you're not going to get uniform compliance on that unless you're going to send cops door to door to make sure that everybody has their guns locked up at night. Second of all, I was raised in a household where, actually for most of my childhood, my dad didn't have a gun safe. Yet I knew where the guns were, and I left them alone. And they were stored safely in a way that that was safe for my household, or for that household at the time. Every situation is different. And yes, I would encourage gun owners to safely store their firearms, especially if they have children in their homes. But creating a blanket policy where everyone has to have them in a safe is not realistic, and it's not actually going to lead to the results that the proponents of these bills are advocating for. You know, and sadly, this one tripped up Republicans. We had 5 Republicans vote for this, including the minority leader of the House Republicans, Matt Hall, who thought he was playing 4D chess by voting for it. And this is where people get cynical. I've been working in grassroots politics now for over a decade, and I think that everybody gets a little ticked off that it feels like both political parties are just screwing us. And stuff like this is just further evidence of it. Is that he was more concerned about playing politics than actually standing up for our rights. With the Democrats, we unfortunately we know where all of them stand on the Second Amendment now. There might be some who are more moderate on the issue, but they're too scared of the crazies in their caucus to vote against these bills. But when you have the House Minority Leader not even tell his caucus that he's going to vote for the gun control measure the day of, we got problems.
They keep putting this forward to people as common sense stuff.
Yeah.
These are just common sense. You know,
And
it's
just to
common
let everybody
sense.
know, when they say that, everything out of their mouth after that is a lie.
Yeah, absolutely.
I took a stand and I told Micah this, and I know Brenden, you didn't really know me that well
Yeah.
to know where I was going to lay on this.
Yeah.
I know you're a little nervous about it. This Jamie Thompson, how's she going to vote on this? But me and my husband are very constitutional, a constitutional family. I believe in our God-given inalienable rights, and anything on the Second Amendment to me is infringing upon it. And that's clear. That's clear in our Michigan Constitution, even more so than the U.S. Constitution. And then what you have to know too is we've been telling people this. Everybody has been trying to tell people this. And you look at this room. the majority of this room is older individuals. We have a whole generation of younger individuals that our schools and the media are getting a hold of, and they are scaring the crap out of them. They are being raised to be in fear of guns, and that has to stop. We have to start talking to our children. We have to start teaching them. We have to get back to some old school ways of raising our kids up, and we have to get our kids. Well, there's so much that we need to do with our youth, but my husband and I are CPL holders. We are raising our 3 grandchildren. I don't feel safe with them having a gun unattended, so our guns are locked up. But like he said, it's different, but I would not vote to force you to lock your gun up, because everyone's situation is different, and if someone believes in defending themselves, if someone breaks in your home, you don't have time to unlock your gun and take the lock off and fumble through in the darkness. I mean, that's not common sense.
What's ironic too is that the Oxford shooter is always brought up as a situation where if we just would have had this law in the books, that shooting would have happened. Which, I mean,
Kids are pretty smart.
that's reinventing history.
And if a kid is going to do something, we all know that.
Well,
I feel like kids need to be educated, because you're gonna say, don't, you can't have this piece of candy, make sure you don't touch that piece of candy. You know, we need to be educating our children.
Well, and the prosecutor there, Karen McDonald, said she had all the laws on the books that she needed to prosecute. But now in the committee hearing, she's saying, well, we didn't have the laws that we needed. I mean, they're using political ends to justify their agenda.
And I'm gonna say this real quick, I do actually call it safe storage, but hold on, safe for the criminal, not you. It makes it where it's safe for the criminal, because look, all these laws only affect the law abiding. So when you're asleep, criminal's gonna come in cock-locked, ready to rock. And as we already know, you're your own first responder. When seconds matter, police are only minutes away. And that's why you carry a gun. And you want one loaded on your nightstand, responsibly. Brenden grew up in a house where the guns weren't all locked up, and so did I. And our houses were perfectly safe. And nobody came in and hurt our families either because of
My
that.
dad owned pistols.
So just keep that in mind. These laws only affect the criminals, because they don't follow laws, and they have any weapon that they need when they come in your home. I think somebody wanted to chime in there in the back.
I just had a quick question.
Yeah.
That safe storage law, what if you don't have kids or you're single?
Yeah, so that's where it's a little unclear, because by the writing of the law, it says that it basically, if you have kids or
They
could knowingly have kids come into your home. So that's kind of a catch-all. So what's that mean? You know, like, if you have grandkids, if they could just potentially drop in, does that mean that your gun should be locked up?
If your friend's coming over and they have kids,
Yeah.
they didn't tell you whether they're bringing their kids or not.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
the only ultimate situation is if you live alone and you, like, beyond a shadow of a doubt, there was
Who's the
never gonna be
prosecutor
trouble
here?
in the house. But that's
Yeah, how do you think
true.
she's gonna handle that?
She's gonna hammer it.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you mentioned that. You know they can go judge shopping on the red flag laws, right?
Yeah.
You could live in Newport, Michigan, and they could go right to Washtenaw County.
It can
In
go
fact-
county to county. We were debating that because we were trying to get, someone was trying to at least get that
Yep.
to be.
They passed both versions of it, and they sent the most radical version.
They don't want us to be safe anywhere in this.
Well, yeah,
state.
and that was intentional. They were trying to undermine any attempts by judges or sheriffs in certain parts of the state to ignore the laws.
So, just a question on that, just to make sure I'm understanding. So they can switch the venue? Like, for instance, if a person that someone's trying to get a red flag law hit against it in Macomb County, say Clinton Township, they can go shop for a judge that's in Lansing or something, or?
Yes.
So that person can actually issue it, even though that's not even their jurisdiction. Well, I guess the state would be the jurisdiction in the sense.
And here's
but-
my opinion, they're gonna, once these red flag laws start actually getting, put out on people, it's gonna be known, and it'll probably be publicized, this judge here is the one you go to, the signs it
Yeah.
every time.
Yeah.
That's my suspicion.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, most definitely. I mean, as soon as you had, look, it's pretty
It's
obvious.
unknown.
It's pretty obvious which counties these red flag orders are going to come from and which ones they're not going to. We all know that. And so that's the thing about the divide in this state, is that it's pretty evident, and they're going to expose that.
We had a question over here.
Yeah, so I'm a member of Michigan Open Care, and we talked about this in our board meeting this past week. And our analysis of it is that if you live in the UP, where you're probably unlikely to find a judge who would grant a red flag order, you can e-file down in Wayne County. You don't have to leave. But then when the respondent who has the order entered against them needs to defend themselves, they got to make the 8+ hour trip down to Wayne County, show up in 36 District Court, probably stay the night in a hotel because you're not going to do 2 8-hour trips in the same day.
Yeah.
So you got to pay for lodging, you got to pay for travel.
Legal
So
counsel.
yeah,
And
you
you're
know,
a
so
lawyer.
nobody
Yeah.
falls
Your
this
own
way.
lawyer.
So if we establish no enforcement zones, which we're going to, such as Livingston County,
I was gonna speak about that.
if they file in Wayne County, how would they enforce it?
So the like, I'm drawing a blank. So, what's the term? I can't think of it.
Well, I'll say in
Livingston County
in Livingston
is a
County-
two-way sanctuary, two-way
it's
sanctuary.
two-way sanctuary, constitutional
Constitutional
sanctuary.
county.
So what that means, is that okay for me to talk about it?
Yes.
So what that means, and actually, Micah educated me on that. So that just means that the county commissioners and the county has the right to say this is a two-way sanctuary county, constitutional county, so they can withhold funds to the police or to the sheriff that would enforce any unconstitutional law. So that's really what that means. So Livingston County Sheriff and Livingston, all of their county commissioners have stood up and said, we are not enforcing this in Livingston County. But yes, what does that look like if it is taken to
Well,
a judge and it's.
AG Nussel said she's just gonna send in extra state troopers
Yeah,
to
She
those
said
areas.
that,
That's
she
right,
was
so-
interviewed, and they said, well, what are you gonna do about
Yeah.
that? How are you gonna make
Which
Livingston enforce
is
this law?
ironic
She goes,
because
I can't make
Yeah.
police officers enforce laws.
They could arrest state troopers trying to enforce the laws.
Wait, Brendan, do you remember when the left used to say F the police and defund all of
now they
them?
want the police.
And now
to,
they want more and more
yeah.
police?
Yeah, the
Reed's
sheriff
got
can do a
gaveled
state
up.
trooper out in the feds.
Yeah, arrest them.
You can arrest them, and you should.
Yeah, now Monroe is a two-way sanctuary county as well.
Yes, not quite as much teeth as the
I
new
was gonna
Livingston
say,
one,
have
but
they even come out and said anything about where they're gonna stand on this? They haven't.
I've been talking to some of them personally. I'm hoping there'll be something coming for it
Yeah.
soon. I'm working on that with them.
Yeah, and yes, that ultimately does show you some of the limitations of the two-way sanctuaries and the necessity of making sure that in upcoming elections that you hold the politicians who voted against your gun rights accountable at the state level. And, you know, it's not, absolutely be involved in your local politics, absolutely. And get your counties to do this stuff and hold them accountable if they go along with it. But don't forget about the state in the process, because, you know, if
And
you.
there was a time that there were Democrats that were moderate Democrats that were very supportive of the Second Amendment, right?
Yeah.
Wasn't John Dingle very
He was the
supportive?
last one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they have just went way further and further,
Yeah.
and or they're afraid to speak out, or they'll say, well, you know, I'm a Democrat, I'm a union worker, I vote that way, but I'll always support my Second Amendment right. Well, you're voting for the person that is taking away each one of your constitutional rights, piece by piece by piece,
Yeah.
and you give them a millimeter, and they're gonna take a foot.
Yeah.
You just can't, you just try to block it.
Benny, you had something? Benny?
You got
Yeah, I look around the room and I see older gentlemen
Yeah, that's what I talked about.
and people that don't even, I don't look bad, but I got a disability. Now with this red flag, my sister, of all people, said, well, you shouldn't be hunting. You're legally blind, but I'm low vision. And if it wasn't for Top Gun getting the scope and helping me out, I wouldn't have been able to shoot deer this year.
Well, and to build on your point, the way that they have the law written, the red flag law in particular, it's knowingly or unknowingly cause harm to self or others.
Unknowingly, he just said.
Knowingly or unknowingly cause harm to self or others. What? What does that even mean?
So far from having men's rights.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, we're all gonna get old, and we're all gonna wanna still hunt.
that's right.
Hunt.
I take my wife with me to be safe.
Well, look, that's why we're supposed to live in the United States of America. Look at the Declaration of Independence, okay? All men are created equal, and they're endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. And among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And then it talked about the role of the government, that to secure these rights, governments are to be instituted among men, okay? The only job of the government, the only reason it's legitimately allowed to exist is to secure his rights so that his sister can't butt in. And that's what we need to remind all these legislators in Lansing. That's their only job, is to protect your natural God-given rights.
One of the Democrats gave a floor speech, and I don't know how many of you watch or follow the session hearings, because I know they are very long. But one of the floor speeches was, she is sick and tired of hearing about your God-given rights. God did not give you those rights, man wrote those
Who
rights.
said that? The governor?
No, one of the Democrats. was
Kelly
it
Breen.
Kelly Breen.
Yeah.
Well,
Kelly Breen.
well, I mean,
And they all laughed.
I know, all from history.
Respect
But
for
they
the
got a
law.
God-given right to an abortion, don't they?
Yeah, amen?
And here's the problem, guys. When you do nothing, and I know not you guys are here, but just remind all your friends that
Yes.
hunt, that carry, when you do nothing, you're actually consenting by being silent. Because it says that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent to the governed. She's only in Lansing because we elected her and consented for her to be there. And that's the same with all 110 Michigan reps.
Well, and Randy, I haven't asked yet on the permit to purchase expansion bill. That one, I think, is honestly gonna be the biggest eye opener for people that are purchasing firearms in Michigan.
That's our next on the list.
Yeah, you know, right now in Michigan, if you wanna purchase a handgun, unless you have a CPL, you have to go get a pistol purchase permit. Well, now they've expanded that to all firearms.
It's shotguns too?
Yeah,
Shotguns too.
shotguns too.
Yep, you have to go get the purchase permit before you can go buy it from a private party or from a gun dealer.
Or transfer it, right?
Or transfer it, yes.
Gun dealer, when you fill out the sorry, I apologize, but when you fill, you can't just fill out a 4473 here to purchase,
No.
I'm gonna say, CPL holder.
Yeah, no,
I can remember back in the day, if you had a CPL license, you filled out the form, they didn't go through that.
they got rid of that.
Yeah.
They even got rid of that for pistols. They got rid of it so where you have to go through a background check even though you have a CPL.
So Brenden, the same rules that apply for handgun now, you don't have to get a purchase permit if you're going through a federal dealer and they're performing a background check. Is that changing, you're saying?
That's
with
changing,
the
yeah.
long gun purchases?
So if you have a CPL, you will not have to get a purchase permit, but you will still have to go through a background check. With the long guns, well,
You're gonna have to go to your FFL. the way I
yeah,
look at it.
no, you're gonna have to go get a purchase permit and then bring it to your
Where do you get
FFL.
that from?
Police
Police
Well, they're
department.
saying that this is gonna be promulgated and enforced through the Michigan State Police. I don't think they put all the exact procedures out.
No, they haven't yet, but
So,
yeah, well, you know, it's interesting, I was talking to a former undersheriff from up North County who shared with me that when it came to the purchase permits, and I'd be curious about it here in Wayne, how many days a week can you get a purchase permit?
Appointment only in some jurisdictions?
Yeah, some counties only do it once or twice, so once or twice a week, so and some by appointment, so,
Wayne County is not the county, it's your local police department.
right,
So it depends
so it's
on their
local
hours.
jurisdiction, yeah. Up north it's the county,
Right.
in some places.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's gonna be a serious infringement on the right to purchase firearms in Michigan. I mean, you're talking about for some people, if you have a job and the county's only open, for until 5, but they're only doing permits on Tuesdays and Thursdays between 11 and 3, but you work a normal job,
So as
you're not gonna be able to get
many guns
it.
are on the black market, and as many criminals that steal guns, do you really think that putting that law in place is going to stop
It's a
anyone
people problem, not a gun problem.
that wants to, get a gun and rob someone or shoot someone?
You wanna hear a real asinine argument on that? I told a friend of mine, he's sort of liberal. And I said, Tom, it's an inanimate object, it's the person that misuses it. He says, well, fentanyl's an inanimate object. I said, you're comparing apples and oranges. I mean, ignorant, I mean, the gun is there to protect your life and your property.
They were originally, what's even scarier, which could come with their next, every time they're getting a little closer, they were originally going to make it so that, and they ended up changing their mind, that if you were a hunter and you were, or you went to a range, you could not I could not allow you to let me use your gun to shoot, or you couldn't just, let your children inherit it.
Even that is in a legal gray area.
That is, it is, yeah.
Especially, has anyone ever done this, said, hey, borrow my shotgun, take it in and sight it in to see if you like it or not before you spend your $500-600.
Yeah.
That can be criminalized.
Well, you do it, like, tell that to my son who goes with his buddy out in the wood, shoot tin cans or skeet shooting.
Or you have family come from out of state.
Huh?
Or if you have family come in from out of state.
That don't wanna fly with the firearm.
They don't want to fly with a firearm, they want to borrow a firearm from you. It gets very messy very quickly.
I mean,
There's a question there.
it's crazy.
I have a question on this. With the changes they make on the universal background checks for all purchases. Now, if I wanted to sell you a gun, I've known you for 30 years, been my neighbor, we went to school together or something. I know what type of person you are, but we have to take it to a gun shop to sell it.
The police station.
Now, when you bring that firearm into the gun shop to process the sale, does the gun shop have to log that firearm into their books as
Yes.
being
No,
one of
you do
theirs?
not. You do not go to a police,
You
you
don't
do not go to a gun store. That
You
is,
take it to the
that
police
is the
station.
general term that everybody thought of as, universal background checks.
Yeah, it's not what
Is
it
the
is
way
here.
it's been publicized for years.
Right.
You will not. You will go to your local police department or wherever you get your purchase permits
Yeah.
to get a background check. You will not go to a dealer.
But you're still going to see, look, we have August here with the GOA. GOA did a bunch of FOIA discovery not too long ago. And they found that they were actually taking these NICS checks and 4473 checks and building an illegal registry. So if you want to know my opinion, I'll cut to the chase. They want to have all these guns on a registry, whether it's legal to have it or not. The feds have literally been busted doing this.
Yep.
And registration always has and probably always will lead to confiscation.
There's
So
a
that's
bill-
what's happening right now.
There's, not to jump ahead of those, but remind me in a minute if we talk about other things. There is a bill that I just seen that's gonna come up for, any of those 3D guns, that they have to have a serial number on.
Oh, the ghost guns.
That's a brand new bill
Yeah,
that's
that
just
just
been
got
introduced.
released.
There's been
There's
about
more
5
coming.
more, so.
There's more coming, there's a
What
BB
about a
gun one.
situation like this? The teenager, like me, who convicted of shoplifting, comes up in a background check. You can't have a gun? It's a nonviolent offense.
They've not changed the prohibited persons.
That's something that Congress did.
What?
I'm trying to think, it's something about juvenile records getting reported to NICS.
Yes, that was the, again, bipartisan bill,
Yeah.
okay? That Mitch McConnell and about 10 Republican senators, the Safer Communities Act last year, that expanded the
So this
juvenile records.
It opens the juvenile records?
Yes, and it puts all juveniles on basically a 10-day delay, if you will.
Yep.
If they come
Everybody
and do it
18
after
to 21, you automatically come down on the standard Brady date delay, and most of the time it gets expanded. It'll come through the system as it's up to 10 days further. And if it hits the time just right with weekends and holidays, it could be closer to 25 days.
And then you get on the brink of your 4473 from expiring and having to restart the whole process.
Yeah.
Could happen.
Well, you throw the expiration date of your
Yes.
purchase permit in there now too.
Yes.
So it's gonna get messy. Question back here.
Are any of you aware of Section 3, Article 8 of the Michigan Constitution that allows legislatures to petition the Supreme Court of Michigan for an opinion? An opinion, not a ruling. That's the big difference. Steve Carra gave me a half-assed answer the other day about this. Give an opinion about the constitutionality of laws that are coming across the floor.
It'd be a waste of time.
Be careful
because
of
the
that.
Supreme Court.
But that can be overruled by the U.S. Supreme Court, where there's a bunch of standing where we can win, such as like in New York recently,
Right.
and that can be set as precedent.
Well,
That can
those
be
are
constituted precedent.
state cases in New York. There were rulings by 2 Supreme Court justices in New York. Now, New York is goofy. Everyone knows that, but their Supreme Court is not the Supreme Court. That's like a level below their Supreme Court.
Yes.
They have
Right.
two judges who have issued rulings against their.
I think they have a superior court maybe?
Yeah, the Superior Court is the highest court in New York. So, when talking about legal challenges, because that's of course everyone's, I've gotten dozens of questions on that. And regardless of what we're looking at is federal jurisdiction. There's no reason to go to the Michigan Supreme Court because they will get it wrong.
But what I'm attempting to imply here is that we can ask the Michigan Supreme Court for a stupid opinion. Yeah, no, I missed the mark. We can ask them for a stupid opinion, which would then be able to be appealed and, overruled by the Supreme Court, where we have a lot of standing,
It's an interesting concept.
which would be precedent, federal precedent.
Well, yes, of course, the goal is to get federal precedents, but the question is with the opinion, if it's a non-binding opinion.
It's an interesting concept.
Well,
Do you wanna talk
because-
to your staff and see how
Yeah.
that works? Just
Well,
to
and-
see?
Because, I mean, ultimately, the goal, because, with any of the challenges to the laws, the goal is to get them into federal court. And you don't necessarily have to go through state court first. You can go straight to, go straight to the Sixth Circuit for any of these challenges. Of course, the first thing is to get standing on.
I mean, the NRA is supposed to already be working with attorneys at some level for what's happening in Michigan, are they not? Are they just shooting out?
I don't know.
Well, one of the questions that we have is gonna be for GOA, and GOA is already into that process.
I can tell you something real quick. I don't want to give names because this is public. There's other people on the other side. They're going to watch this on video. I was talking to a sitting state representative yesterday, and he has been talking to one of the major gun rights groups, legal counsel. So there are legislators that are working avenues behind the scenes right now. I know that. If that helps.
The question is, and I'm gonna cut in real quick because, I don't know what they do, but on our end of it, it's time. It sounds good in theory when we're gonna win this court battle. It's unconstitutional. We know that, we see that, we see the handwriting right there. The problem is, all of these things, these bills, when they're signed in, they take massive time, and they take their toll on not only the citizens, but they take their toll on our rights.
Yeah.
The old saying that once you lose your right, you're not getting it back,
Well, and
that's why you're sitting here today.
if I can, on that point, Randy, one problem that we always run into in the gun rights community is that there's a lot of emphasis on lawsuits. And lawsuits can be a winning strategy, but they take time. But in the meantime, while the lawsuits are working their way through, and the Democrats do this by design, they are passing laws to push the envelope. I mean, you look at the Bruin response in New York State or New Jersey or, in California, the various assault weapons ban, it's dragging out the process because they're just trying to gum up the courts with as many different challenges as possible to hopefully, basically, outlive Clarence Thomas is the goal. In the meantime, though, the gun rights community has to be very active and vocal and mobilized in holding politicians accountable who trample on your rights. So in the meantime, it would have been better, and this is what my organization did for the last 2 months. We delivered over 80,000 petitions opposing the various gun control measures. We generated thousands of phone calls, thousands of emails. I dropped 6 rounds of mail in key districts around the state, because all we need to do is flip one Democrat if we held the Republicans, which apparently that was a challenge, to make it as painful as possible for them to pass even one of these bills. Did we succeed? Unfortunately not, and I kick myself almost every day that we didn't succeed, but we made it as painful as possible for them to pass every single one of these bills, so that maybe the next time they try to do it, they'll remember how painful it was. And as I understand, there are some of them who are getting tired of the beatings. And the beatings will continue until they stop doing it. And that's how it has to be. Because if you are silent for even one of these bills, they'll say, well, that was easy. Let's pass some more then.
And I know Nancy is a part.
last week.
What happened in Illinois last week?
Yeah, the district court was
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, they, the Supreme Court, Barrett, signed off on the basic.
So you got some questions for them that they have to
Right, yeah,
respond to by May 8th.
Yeah,
And the fact that she didn't just dismiss it
yeah, it's a big
is a
deal.
good sign.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry.
Question.
I guess one of my questions, I'm not gonna say obviously, but I am a Second Amendment supporter.
Yeah.
But it seems like overall, collectively, regarding this issue, we're always on the defensive. And eventually, if we keep this posture, we're gonna lose. There's a saying that goes, a drop of water, if it hits a block of a rock enough times, it's gonna carve a hole through it.
Yep.
And that's what's happening, because I think that, number one, we need to look at it from a different perspective, become more organized, which is what obviously we're trying to do overall. But we need to be more offensive. Here's an example of being offensive. Some of the legislators or organizations or people in government, whoever they may be, or administrative bodies like the ATF, there needs to be lawsuits against these people personally. Because if these people know, whether they act like they know or act like they don't know, but if they end up doing something wrong, they ends up getting overturned, there needs to be a follow-up coming behind them, because to show the frivolousness of something, that way, when you start putting pressure on people from that perspective, because the only thing they stand to lose is if they lost something, well, they'll just go get money from Soros or whoever overall and just do it again. As long as they can keep
But they're
it.
using your money to
Exactly. Anyway,
I hear you.
we need to hit them with legal lawsuits personally. We need to find out. It's just a Rubik's Cube. We got to figure it out, because at this point, it doesn't matter whether we lose, whether there's a red flag law today, or if it changes or not. 10 years, 15, 20 years from now, it's still going to be obliterated. It's just going to be a matter of time, because they got the numbers, they got the push, they got the younger generation, they got the social media. It's just a matter of time. They're just like a boa constrictor. They're just squeezing down and going to squeeze the life out of our rights. We need to become more offensive minded through legal actions, not just from a governmental standpoint towards an organization, like qualified immunity towards law enforcement. We need to start, I'm not using that as an example, I'm trying to illustrate something here.
Well, that is an
That we
example.
need to squeeze the people that are making these decisions personally, legally, I'm saying, legally.
Well, that's a good point. What I can say is, yeah, absolutely the best defense is an aggressive offense. And what's interesting on that point, so I work for the National Association for Gun Rights as well. I've worked for them for a decade. When I started working for NAGR, there are 4 states that had constitutional carry laws. For anyone who doesn't know, constitutional carry simply says if you can possess a handgun, you can carry openly or concealed without having to get the permit first. There's only 4 states when I started at NAGR, and over the last, 9 years, there are now 27. That's an aggressive offense. That's passing laws that are actively repealing restrictions on the right to keep and bear arms. And it's something that I was working on here in Michigan until the train went off the rails last year.
Isn't it interesting that every Republican ran on?
Every Republican ran on constitutional
Constitutional
carry, and then 5 of them ended up voting for safe storage. But that goes to the point, is when you have the votes, and legislatively speaking, when you have the votes, you do what the Democrats do. What did the Democrats do as soon as they got into Lansing? They voted to pass as much gun control as possible, consequences be damned. The fact of the matter is that gun rights is actually a winning issue. In state after state that have passed it, we haven't lost a constitutional carry law yet. There's 27 of them. And so that means you're unnecessarily going into blue states. The first constitutional carry state was Vermont, but they had it in their state constitution, so that's cheating. But Maine, New Hampshire, these are not exactly the most, Republican states, if you will. But that's where, here in Michigan, it was before I got in the gun rights movement, but in 2012, the Michigan House of Representatives passed with bipartisan support the full repeal of permit to purchase and handgun registration. 72 to 30, whatever it was. Democrats and Republicans voted to repeal that archaic, draconian system. It goes over to the Senate, they gut it, and it goes to the governor's desk as, I think that was just getting rid of basically the,
Pistol-free zones.
no, it wasn't pistol-free zones, that's one that they keep kicking it back and forth. I'm trying to remember what exactly it was, but it was a scaling back of the permit to purchase, and I don't remember. In any case, they had the votes to get rid of the stupid thing, and now we didn't get rid of it over the last decade, and now Democrats have expanded to all firearms.
I heard with Snyder, he was gonna sign it the next day, and there was a mass shooting in
The Sandy
Texas.
Hook.
Yeah, Sandy Hook.
Yeah, it would have been Sandy
And
Hook.
that happens so
Sign it,
much,
sign
even
it,
on the
yeah.
federal level.
Yeah.
Has the red flag law been passed?
It has been passed, it has not technically been signed.
Okay, I didn't think it was signed. What else other than red? First of all, the problem I have with red flag laws, if I got it, I could just say you're a nutcase, or or some people saw me after my wife died, they think I was crazy. Yeah, I mean, so I'm out of the picture.
We talked about those when we first started.
And it is a system right for abuse, because while it doesn't allow your neighbor necessarily to do it, I mean, it's wide open for
Yeah.
abuse. And yeah, you don't get a voice on it until they've already taken your firearms.
I think the next state Redmond senators should be EROP the day that goes in. We should all call them in.
Well, a lot of people have to get insurance, because even though you had a right self-defense, you shot the SOB.
Yeah, well,
You better have that insurance.
definitely bring that back up. Okay, moving on. Okay, Representative Thompson, this one is specifically for you. Since you're in the war zone, you may say, what is looking down the pipe? What are we looking at that's coming up very soon as far as different anti-gun bills?
Okay, so I mentioned the one most recently about the 3D guns or the ghost guns requiring serial numbers on all of those. There is, off the top of my head, there is the BB gun bill, which I'm just really upset about because kids are kids and kids should be allowed to go in their backyard and shoot their BB guns at cans or their airsoft guns, but now they're gonna criminalize anyone under the age of 18 if they're caught with a BB gun, and basically the way the law is written is it's coming off of their porch. So they can only be like on their home, in their home.
Within the curtilage.
Yeah. So if your child goes out in the backyard and the neighbor calls the police, so-and-so, Johnny's out there shooting BB guns, your kid is getting a criminal record against them. But they're trying to do criminal justice reform, but all they're doing is criminalizing our children for being kids. What is something?
Well, we did a video just 2 days ago with Representative Smith that you guys are gonna see soon about
Okay,
the
so
Capitol.
at the Capitol Commission, for those of you that maybe have not seen his video, so the Capitol Commission was a group of people that are nominated for the position by certain people in Lansing. So what is it? The speaker gets to nominate two, the governor nominates.
Senate Majority Leader.
So there are like, how many is there?
So they're all basically Democrats.
Right now, at this point, they all are. So, and their sole responsibility is to maintain the grounds, dust, clean, take
Cutting
care
grass.
of the
I
Capitol.
cut grass for a living, so
So that's what the Capitol Commission is. But now, they've scared them so much that they've come to the table and they're going to be they're searching, they've got bids out to put 5, metal detectors,
enhanced weapon scanners.
enhanced weapon scanners, possible facial recognition, they're talking about that. Putting that within the Capitol, changing the entrances so there's not open entrances as there were, and then hiring 30 new sergeant of arms within the House office building, the Senate office building, and the Capitol. And that's not knowing if that's going to extend, so it's gonna ban anyone's ability to carry. So right now, our staff is banned. So my staff, Sam, and my back desk, Devin, are both CPL holders, and they both were carrying in the office. And honestly, me wearing a skirt and things of that nature, I wasn't carrying. So my husband felt very secure with sometimes these radical people, from me walking back and forth to the Capitol by myself at times, or around Lansing, maybe I went to a dinner, that my staff were carrying. They banned that. So my staff is not allowed to carry. And because they are technically, they serve at the pleasure of the speaker, who at this time is a Democrat, and they are state employees, they are not allowed to bring a firearm into my office. I am allowed to bring my firearm.
I can too.
And you can, if you have a CPL, you can carry at the Capitol as of right now. You cannot open carry like you used to be able to. So you can have a CPL, but this is gonna change. They're moving towards banning all firearms.
The irony of it is that they're making the Capitol more safe for themselves while ignoring school security.
And that's what I told Micah. I said, we can't harden our schools and protect our schools, but we can sure as hell protect our politicians, can't we?
Yep.
And that really, really, really angers me.
And I did a long video giving you guys the whole history. For those of you that just joined on 2A EDU on YouTube, I did like a 17-minute video telling you guys how this all started 10 years ago. And then look forward to a video soon with another awesome representative, Thompson and Rochelle Smith. I doubt if anyone here is in her district. She's from up north, but in the west over
No, she
there.
Oh, are you?
Right here. There you go. Yeah, so stay tuned for that and you'll hear both of them
It's pretty
talking about it.
interesting, you have some pretty strong women right now in the House as Republicans that are
Yeah.
fighting really hard for constitutional
More
rights.
women have bought arms since
She's a
the
good
election of Obama than men.
I can't think of anything that comes to mind that I've seen.
They're working on gutting preemption so that our municipality can pass their own gun control laws. I think that they're priming that right now because of the Greek town.
Yeah.
Yes.
Detroit,
Yeah, and I know that the city council is planning on passing a resolution. I think they delayed passing that resolution.
For the gun-free zone.
Because they said they need Lansing to act.
Well, yeah, well,
So-
what they changed it to is a petition to the state legislature to gut preemption. So I can see them moving on that next so that Detroit can create its own, because gun-free zones are gonna help Detroit.
Weird, but that's also
Yeah.
gonna go, you're gonna get a very liberal judge in another city that could think that was a great thing for their city. So Detroit's gonna do it.
Yeah, well, Grand Rapids will do it, Ann Arbor will do it, Lansing will do it,
Taylor might do it.
Yes, yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
Randy, you had a question?
Yeah, you know, I live in Taylor. I lived here my whole life, okay? I farmed here, I was growing up here. The thing that got me is Taylor Police, which my uncle was a Taylor cop, but they gave all our dogs away for the drugs and stuff like that because you can have marijuana nowadays. So the dogs were useless. But why didn't they put them in schools instead of picking friends and put them in there with no gun, ex-police officers with no guns, and paying them when a dog can sniff out a gun or drugs quicker than the cop can?
You know, there are many people that I've talked to that would like to see that happen. That would like to see dogs in the school for that very reason.
Why, I mean, it's common sense. Why pay somebody, put a cop in there, I ain't got a problem with it.
Your problem is
Give 'em a gun.
you have to go to these school board meetings and talk to the board and talk to the superintendents and talk to the
Well, that's
teachers.
like talking to that wall.
I know, I mean, I know,
it's
I hear you.
crazy.
I hear you.
Question back there.
To stop the scanners at the Capitol, what could John Q. Public do? Everything we do, emails, phone calls, even if we had everyone
Yeah,
that we wish was calling, they just ignore us.
they're gonna do,
We're outnumbered,
yeah, and
I mean, you feel that every day you stand up there.
Yeah.
Is there anything else?
on the capital gun ban issue, I mean, frankly, that's like a Pandora's box. Once it's been opened, that isn't one that's gonna
You
go
can't
away.
guilt them, shame
So
them
I've
for protecting
worked-
somebody else?
I've worked in more than a dozen state capitals, and I used to have, Michigan has its problems with gun laws. This was before the recent events, but Michigan was the most gun-friendly capital in the country that I've been to. And you know what? You feel safe there. I mean, maybe the lefties feel like, oh, there's somebody with a gun lurking behind every corner or something like that. But it was friendly to walk into. You walk into state capitals that have the metal detectors and you know 5 cops out front or whatever. It doesn't feel inviting. That's the people's house.
There's never been a gun incident at the Capitol
Yeah.
in 145 years.
Yeah.
Just so you guys know.
I never want anyone to feel like they're defeated because, I mean, I look
Yeah.
towards, is there a chance that if we did get back majority and the commission was, appointed by
Yeah.
Republicans, if different people were in that position, if legislation was made to remove, because it was the governor that gave them that power and put that in their ear, or the attorney general,
Yeah.
correct?
Well, but the problem is that it started caving under Republicans.
Gotta get rid of the rhinos.
Well, I will tell you guys this. Here's something to look forward to. If you can flip one seat, it becomes a tie in the House. And I don't just mean Republicans. I mean Second Amendment supporters. Representative Thompson and her colleagues do hold the power of the purse. If they had a true majority, again, I don't care what letters behind their name, but freedom-loving majority, they could defund that, and without any money, they wouldn't be able to use these scanners and things. That is actually a little bit of a hope forward.
Yeah.
How many of your friends, I know you guys do because you're here, I have to say this, because it's the same way with my YouTube audience, but how many of your friends that own guns, even though they have a state representative, or know their name? Because you know what's kind of crazy and it's sad? I get tens of thousands of comments on my YouTube channel, and people say, I just called my Michigan State Rep, Debbie Dingle, today, and told her not to, well, no, Debbie Dingle's a United States Congressman.
Right.
There's so many people that don't even know they have a state rep.
Let's not put anyone on the spot,
So-
but I know the district's changed, and that's been a little confusing for everyone. But if you know for a fact who your state representative is, raise your hand.
I don't know.
Who's this 19? Becky Miller.
Where you at?
Oh, boy.
I got Joe T.
Rashida Tlaib.
Well, no, this matters, guys.
Jamie Churches.
Jamie Churches. Now, here's what we need
I
to
was
talk
just gonna
about.
say-
Last time I called her, her phone was off. Quite
Jamie,
simply enough, she was only taking priority calls.
Jamie Churches. Now, I only won by, there's a very interesting dynamic that's going on in the 27th. I'll go this way because that's how it kind of looks on a map to me. The 27th district, the 28th district, 29th district. These are all very, they call them 50-50 districts that it could go either way. They're very close races. So Jamie Churches, the Democrat, won by 660 votes in the 27th. 660 votes she won by. Right next to her, 5 miles in some areas of the district, I, being the Republican, won by 735 votes. Move over 5 miles the other way, Jim DeSanta, the Republican, won by a little over 1,000, something like that. That's how crazy this district is. So we maintain the 28th and the 29th, me and DeSanta, and then we flip Jamie Churches and get her out of there. 660 votes. And she stood, the main thing that killed us is the abortion. The Democrats were smart, they threw abortion, they scared the crap out of all these young girls and all these young kids that were screaming, my body, my choice, and they got them to the polls, they got them registered to vote, and they vote. How many of our kids are registered to vote? How many of your nieces and nephews are registered to vote? My 2 boys are 22 and 24, and they have always been to this range, they've always been shooters, and I kept telling them and telling them and telling them, I'm not crazy, you love to shoot, all of your friends are 22, 23, 24, do they vote? Are they in the Second Amendment, movement? Are they fighting for their rights? If they're not, I'm sorry, sit down and shut up then. Get up and start moving. Sorry.
I'm the at-large for the Libertarian Party, Wayne County, and we are more than willing to work with anyone that would like to replace that sniveling school teacher named Jamie Churches. I'll be working closely with you if you'll have me. Secondly, I think that Republicans need to stop being not Democrat and start being, for something. Constitutional carry, for example. Looking into abolishing the income tax, perhaps. Not dying on a hill that they know they're going to get slaughtered by youth turnout that historically they don't really know what they're voting for. They don't really care. They hear something's good and they check a box.
We think about ballot initiatives. What is a ballot initiative that would bring voters to the poll? There's an interesting dynamics with the election. I don't know if you dive into the numbers. There was a lot more Republicans that voted in certain areas in the primary. They came out and voted in the primary, and in those same districts, they voted for, say there was 3 Republicans in the primary. They voted for their favorite, but then they never came back and voted in general. So that Republican lost that general. There was some interesting across the state. In Taylor, so I'm really good friends with Bogey, who runs the Shield of Souls, and we went over to the club, and I'm talking to this guy, and he's in Taylor, to find out he's in my district, and I'm like, all right, cool, so you voted for me. He's like, no, I have to work.
I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I tend to agree with this gentleman here. Until this hits these people's pocketbooks, they have ultimate control, and I'll be the first one to tell you, I don't care what anybody else in this room thinks, those voting machines and the voting stuff that's going on, until we get a hold of that, they're gonna do whatever they want. If you've got these drop boxes all over, and
That's
anybody
another
can do
gun
whatever they
bill,
want
that's
to do.
another gun bill that hasn't been voted on. So there's a
But-
new bill, when
But
we were
the fact
talking
of the
about
matter
that.
is, we are always nice
Yes.
and
You are
polite
right. You are
and try to do
100% right.
everything right. But
You are
until
100%
these
right.
judges, until these people, until it hits them financially, or they are brought up in front of everybody and everybody can see what kind of rats they really are, get them out from behind their cover, I'm telling you, this is a losing battle.
People were misinformed with Prop 3. Prop 2.
They
Sorry,
lied.
They were all.
They lied.
We were trying so hard. I had so many people that were knocking doors and trying to educate people on Prop 2 and Prop 3, and they just didn't understand. They did lie. The commercials were deceiving. The message was deceiving. The
Right.
verbiage was deceiving because the verbiage on the darn ballot wasn't even actually what the verbiage was going to do. So Prop 2 allowed for 9 days early voting. So my clerks are calling me now in a panic. How in the heck are we going to do 9 days of voting? So now instead of voting on November 3rd or whatever, you're gonna have 9 days to go to your clerk and vote. There's going to be drop boxes everywhere. Ballot management, we're gonna call it, is going to be completely acceptable.
Sure.
So you have to, but you know what? They've been doing it for years and we don't do it because we're too self-righteous to not do it. So we have organizations that are working with churches and saying, you know, pastors that will speak out from the pulpit that say, you know, you need to start gathering ballots. You need to start gathering ballots. You got someone that you go to a door, registered to vote. Oh, you're not registered to vote. Let me get you registered to vote.
Can a gun shop do that?
Yeah.
Sure.
Should we talk to our gun shops about, you know, we need to think about these things.
Yeah, so there's that. There's this new Jamie Church, I don't wanna say that, I might be wrong, but there's another bill related to guns that you cannot carry a firearm for 45 days within a
100 feet.
100 feet of a ballot, a drop box.
So what happens if you live right next door to where
You
that
can't
guy's
leave your
at?
house.
That's right. If you've got a ballot box, it's right at the corner of your street.
45 days.
You want to go out and pheasant hunt, it's a crime now that you took your gun out of your house to go
If you
pheasant
drive down the street, if you walk down the street.
box, it's not hard, guys.
Just read it. I don't want to say
That'd be really
on the left spot.
The concept is not hard.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say I'm very concerned about the next election.
She's talking about in Minecraft, in a video.
You know where we gotta stop it?
In a video game.
We gotta teach our kids. And people's gotta get back fishing, hunting, where you have to take a hunter safety course.
They used to be offered
In schools. Instead of talking transgender, talk about guns. That's what's gonna stop the stuff.
And to that point, culturally, how many gun ranges are in Detroit, for example?
I think there's 0 in the city.
Zero?
Zero in the
Part of
city.
getting involved
Yeah, I
in
think
local
the last one
politics
closed,
is also
isn't
getting involved in like the zoning that would allow for, I don't know, like a gun store or a gun range to open up in Detroit and create a avenue for people to become familiar with guns. I was speaking to a reporter, never held a gun. Reporting on it, very nice guy, he's afraid. He's never held it, he doesn't know guns at all. If you give people access to it, if you give people avenues, the cities create a culture of you know, gun ownership and gun safety, that kind of thing. People will value these rights a lot more than if, for whatever reason, like Detroit's a dry county or a dry city for you know, gun activity, that sort of thing.
Well, not illegal gun.
No, well, not that way, but of course,
No, you can pick up anytime you want.
How many people told, probably each one of you, fairly recently within the last year, is that's not gonna happen?
Yeah.
That's not
Oh,
gonna
I've heard
happen.
it thousands of times.
They're not gonna do
Is that
that.
what
Oh,
you're
I
saying?
don't, but a lot of my friends.
Are they kind of like the gas stoves, right?
See, no one's coming for your guns.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, that's
In
pretty
here-
interesting, ain't it?
I don't know, I know a lot of you, like I said, I hear it almost every day. I've heard that for the last 20 years that I've worked here. They'll never take your guns away. No, that won't happen. In the last 3 weeks, I've had 2 of those very same people come in.
You say, oh
And-
my gosh.
Yeah, what's going on? I can't believe this. What's going on with our laws? Well,
But there's not every single, you know, shooting range or gun store
yes,
advocates the way you do.
exactly.
They don't.
And that's the thing too.
The gun shop in the area.
And, you know, we do this because this is a passion for us, and this is also, you know, our God-given rights. And Mike, the owner, and the owners of this store are very adamant about that. And it gave us an opportunity to see all of you, because all of you are what makes us, it makes the Second Amendment. And I wanted to ask everybody a question. Has anybody in here called your state rep? Called them on the phone?
Every week.
How many answers you get?
They don't answer.
Well, I've also got it so that they turn off their phone and only accept priority calls, and I'm like,
How many of you
days
email?
worth
How many email? Email everybody? What answer do you get?
None from none.
Do you understand
It's just
that they work for you.
Well, they want you
But
dead.
what the message you get back is just,
Those salaries, I mean,
thank
I
you for
said
being
that so I
concerned,
could
that's it.
rile everybody up to say, okay, this is
That's all they're
enough.
saying.
Our gun rights.
Sam, you
report
better
does.
be responding to emails.
We are.
Okay.
I'll tell you what.
They say they work for us.
I'll tell you what, like, Reggie Miller, I gotta give her credit for one thing. She answers her own damn phone
Good.
and talks to you, except when she's in session. And then if she don't, her assistant calls you back.
Do you know that you
Her
can,
helper.
so Micah shows up and so does Brenden, they go to the Capitol. You can go to the, explain that process, and you can knock on your representative's door.
Yeah,
Now, you
Brenda Carter.
can't,
So-
you can't expect to maybe see them that day, but their staff is sitting at the front desk and you walk in and you say, hi, I'm blank, 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 I live in the representative's district, I was wondering if I could have a moment of her time when she's available.
And I will tell you this too. First of all, that's how I met Brenden. Brenden, I've been to the Capitol probably 20 times. I don't work for a gun rights group, guys. I have a YouTube channel, other social media. I'm a landscaper, but enough's enough. I had to do something. So I started going there. I'd see this man in the hall. He'd say, I have to go back out to my truck that I'm renting because he has so many thousands of pounds of petitions he's passing out, carrying them with a wagon. But to get back to what you said, Jamie, yes, there's a couple things you guys can do. I posted this on my locals community, how to do it. You can go to the Capitol. Right across the street from the main Capitol building is what's called the Anderson House Office Building. There's a parking structure called the North Grand Ramp. You can park there. It's $5 an hour, $15 maximum charge. You might get lucky to park on the street, probably not. And then you walk in there, you'll see the Sergeant at Arms desk. I have a frequent visitor pass. If not, you show them your ID. They want to know who's coming in the building. They might just ask you your purpose for being there. Just say, I'm going to see my state rep.
Yep.
And then you're gonna go to this big digital TV, it's like a screen, it's going to tell you the different room numbers of the reps, or you can ask the Sergeant at Arms, and you'll just go to the elevators, pick the floor, and you can walk in there. Now, when you walk into Representative Thompson's office, you'll be greeted by Sam first, he's the front desk. If you look at their little refrigerator, you'll see a 2A EDU sticker on it, so you'll know you're at home there with the Second Amendment. And you can leave a message, like face to face. Here's something else you can do.
You go to other representatives' offices too.
Go to all the other representatives' offices that you want to.
Your senator too.
Yeah, your Senate, the Senate.
Now, that's in the other building, that's just on the other side of the Capitol, but they're both just a couple 100 feet. Now, what I did the other day is I did go to the Anderson House Office Building, hung out with a couple reps in their offices, like Representative DeSanta, Representative Regas, but I also do this a lot. There's a lobby where you can sit, well, there's a lobby down below, and then there's a viewing gallery where you can watch the session. You get a better view up top. But I stand out in the lobby. When the representatives walk out, I literally walk up to them and ask them the questions I have, tell them what's on my mind. You guys can see pictures on my YouTube right now with my representative as well as several other ones. You guys can do that too. I'm not a lobbyist. I'm literally nobody. But I can walk there, and you gotta do some homework. You have to know what they look like, obviously, and if you know what they look like, no, that's important. You can go on the House website.
One thing that Micah
and
brought
walk
up though,
to
that
it.
in this climate, especially with the fragility of some of the people within that party, Micah did bring up a good point. As men, I would make sure that there was another man with you, or if people were around, and I hate to say that.
I
but
won't walk in some of those offices alone, guys. I
You don't
just know the way
want someone
things are.
to say something that's not true.
Yeah.
And it's,
They like to
There's your-
switch it up.
There's your red flag.
yeah.
There's your red flag right there.
Yep.
My representative is Penn Carter.
Because I'm
And
publicly
I walked
outspoken.
in that office
and
and I knew the minute I was in there.
I mean, Jamie Churches stood at the podium and screamed, she was scared of men with guns, and she was so afraid.
I bet you she has armed security though, and I bet you they're men.
She projected on others, right?
You guys,
That's you.
You guys are
Don't
gonna-
project it
But
towards
it
else.
doesn't mean that that's the 90,000 people that you represent.
Exactly.
well, you guys are gonna see a video if you follow my YouTube channel. I know some of you guys do. You're gonna see Representative Thompson say she doesn't want to protect her in the Capitol. She wants to protect herself and send all those funds to protect the kids at the schools. So all of the representatives are not surrounded by body guns, like you might think. I've walked with her from her House office building across the street through a radical crowd that was literally chanting things, and it seemed a little bit scary. And I was literally walking to her just like right like this, and I was armed. You know, I mean, it's
I didn't
it's
realize
not
he
like
was
you
doing
guys
that
think.
either. I didn't realize until after.
Like, why was like right on top
Yeah,
of you?
I
Like,
didn't, I was just walking.
there was people kind of like starting to congregate, it was.
But I
it
didn't
was a little
realize it,
bit-
and Micah was making sure that I was protected and not walking across by myself. You're an honorable man. Thank
Oh,
you.
well, thank you, but they don't have, that's a misconception though, they don't,
Yeah.
you guys don't have like bodyguards like people think they do, they really don't.
Not at these levels, I'm sure, you know, Pelosi's got bodyguards.
They
didn't do her husband any good.
They did do it really good.
But when they, okay, you got a.
Yeah, I'm reading my next one, so if you got a question.
Okay, no, go ahead.
You got a question back there before we go on?
Yes, I think we all are a little bit guilty here. Because if you don't know.
I
the facts-
recognize that voice.
Oh, jeez, oh.
There's that voice.
Unfortunately, I think we're all a little bit guilty here. We gotta live in the facts.
He's the GOA.
Or live them and preach them to the media, to everybody.
Oh, yeah.
Because if everybody did that, we wouldn't be in the hole we're in, I'm afraid. So if you don't know who John R. Lott Jr. is, his website's crimeresearch.org. He's got a lot of good stuff on it.
Did an
Go to that
incredible
website,
job
look at it,
testifying
learn
on
it,
it before
Tell
the
everybody you
committee.
know about it, and
Look, that's a perfect
start the ball rolling.
example of the disdain that those people have, that are in power. They don't care. They don't care. That's why I go back to the same thing. Somehow you have to get to these people.
Is there anybody from Wyandotte here? 627 votes, I believe?
660.
660.
I'm not gonna go if I have to.
I mean,
Right.
got, really?
it's that close, guys. They flip one seat, it'll make good luck in the House.
That's your seat too, isn't it, Greg?
No.
Oh, it's not? Who is yours? Who's your rep?
Churches.
Yeah, well, so that's still your 27th district.
I just said Wyandotte kind of colloquially.
Yeah, you
but-
South
I just
Gate.
didn't, I think also we're too nice. Conservative, libertarian people are too nice. We gotta be more like BLM. Yeah, I said it.
Burn
Right
mine.
there.
Well, no, instead of burning private businesses, we'll burn
I'm
government.
not talking burning, I'm just saying get in their face and say, hey, we're gonna take you out, one way or the other.
But then you hurt their feelings and then you're in trouble.
You gotta go after, somehow you gotta go after them legally. And I'll be honest with you, every time I walked into a gun shop, I would donate money. I would be more than happy
that. That's gonna be important too. It's gonna be important.
I'd be more than happy to donate.
You know, I'm gonna speak this out real quick. Brenden, him and I have talked about this a few times, about the lawsuit that he just brought in and the things that he has to do. GOA, this is not cheap. They have to pay money from where? From us. So they are out there walking those streets and getting in their face. So please, by all means, I was gonna wait till the very end to say this, but by all means, donate. Here in the store, and probably other gun stores too, we have little drop boxes, and you get your change. Every dime, every penny counts. Please do that. All the proceeds tonight from this, everything that everybody paid is going to them to help them out. It's very important for us to do that. Okay, I'm gonna go on to the next question real quick. You hit on this just a little bit. They were proposing, this did not go through yet, as far as I know, the gun-free zone, Park Plaza, downtown. I spoke with a DPD officer last night, and they do have metal detectors, they have face recognition, they do have cameras there, and they do have large screens there, and they're putting those up. Is that on the docket? Is that something that we're looking forward to?
It has not come before the House in any bill, so once a week, we get a legislative update that tells us every bill that's filed that week. And then we, go through it and read or scan all the bills, or I've not been told by anybody that they hear that's coming down the pipeline, and I have not seen it come across.
They have the bills filed though.
You know why I'm laughing, right, Jamie?
Why?
How many times have I called you and told you about a bill?
You're right,
3 or
though,
4
you
days
are
before?
right, you are right, yep.
That's the lack of decorum in the
Yeah.
House right now, I'm just gonna
Yeah.
call it out.
Okay, we got 3 real quick. Yes, 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 and yes.
Yeah, on the metal detectors or the gun scanners, I have personal experience with those. So I live in the city of Detroit, believe it or not, and what happened is, as soon as they announced that they were doing that, I decided that I wanted to go and test them out. So What I did is I concealed carried. Well, first I drove around to try to find where they all were because they didn't announce them ahead of time. I guess to try to catch people off guard. But I intentionally walked through all of them, and I heard an audible trigger on them to see that it was set off. And I was curious, what is going to happen? Because we have a Fourth Amendment. They can't just start stopping frisking you. And I kept walking. And what they do is they have the Detroit Tactical Team, which are on these black Ford Explorers, and they'll drive by you and they'll kind of look at you. And if they see you do the slightest thing, they'll make that a probable cause stop on you. Now, personally, I was never stopped by any of them, but I did see people who set them off who maybe didn't look like me because gun control is racist. And they were the ones who were discriminated against. They were the ones who were stopped, and they were the ones who got popped.
So where is this within, because obviously I'm not in Detroit, so where is this?
So the way that it works is that the gun scanners, the ones that I have found that are set up, they're set up on Greektown, both sidewalks, because there's only one way and one way, except
How long have they been there?
It's been there for a few weeks.
Because of all the shootings that were recently happening.
Yeah. And then they also have a couple others downtown. But I just think it's so funny because I actually went and testified in front of the Detroit City Council opposing this idea. And I confronted Mary Waters and her idea. And she then responded to me and said, well, CPL holders commit gun crimes too. So we need to watch out for them as well. So these are people that, unfortunately, they cannot be reasoned with.
Right.
No different than your driver's license. If you go by a lot of people don't know this, if you go by the bridge in Canada, you drive by that 20 times, they're investigating you and you don't even know it. Because of that little thing on your driver's license. Nobody knows that.
I don't believe in licenses.
Yep. Go ahead.
I heard there's a bill to repeal preemption, is that correct?
Yeah.
Well,
Do we all know what preemption is?
Well, not repeal.
the bill hasn't been published with the clerk yet.
No, there is a bill filed.
Is there?
Yeah, there are bills.
Do you have the bill number? Numbers?
No, it was several weeks ago.
Well, that was preemption for certain things though. It said that
There was the
it would allow localities to ban open carry.
Yeah, that was.
I think we're gonna see a complete preemption one.
So we're seeing changing in session two, and I don't
You know
know.
what I'm talking about, Brenden, about the open carry.
Are you talking about within certain cities and counties?
Yes.
My understanding of the Michigan Constitution, and this was brought up a few years ago in Ann Arbor, that cities and counties cannot make their own gun laws.
Correct, they cannot be more restrictive.
Of a teacher, open carry, to CPL, to the schools, recitals in Ann Arbor. Ann Arbor tried to sue them, and the city lost because they can't circumvent the state rights.
That's not a constitutional provision, no, that's a statute.
What's that?
That's not a constitutional provision, that's a statute. Meaning it's law that the legislature could change.
We have a state.
Right, but that has to be done on a statewide level, doesn't it?
It has to be,
This
the
Detroit,
legislature could do it.
this Detroit City Council thing, in my opinion, is clearly opening the door. Because when Detroit, they tabled it for now, but when Detroit was getting ready to vote on this, their legal counsel said that you don't have the authority with state preemption, which means the next step is to try to get the state to remove.
Yeah. So, Mike, you are correct, it is only open carry, but they could easily amend it into something last year.
They've amended it. Can I say one more
Yeah,
quick thing?
yes.
I want you guys to know how crazy this stuff is, because you need to tell your friends. One day she was sitting down there in session, and they were voting on a bill. And then the Democrats go off into this caucus room, it's a secret dark lair. Yes. They come back and they say, we would like to put forth substitute 2. It might have been substitute 5, but substitute. What that meant was, is behind closed doors, they could have changed one letter, or they could have changed the whole bill. They could have changed everything but the title. I texted her as she's sitting in her chair, and I was in the gallery at that point on my laptop. I'm like, do you have the substitute? And you said,
No.
so they're voting on stuff that literally in the back room it was changed. One word could have been changed, all the words could have been changed. I'm reading it as fast as I can. Now, she's ride or die, always going to defend our Second Amendment.
I was like, I'm voting no anyway.
But to do due diligence, I told you, I said, it's still bad, even after these tweaks.
And that was on the storage bill, in which, the House Republican leader told his Republican caucus, and I'm not supposed to know what happens in the caucus, but I have my ways, that, that they've made the bill less bad.
It's a compromise.
And basically that freed up 5 Republicans to vote for it. And it sounds like, by the sounds of it, it sounds like the same stuff was going on with red flag too. Is that if they would have weakened it down more without enough political pressure, and Representative Thompson can't tell me good, bad, or otherwise because caucus secrecy, which is nonsense, that we could have possibly lost Republicans on that as well. The Democrats would have watered it down.
And I want to give.
So they're just Democrats driving the speed limit.
Yes, exactly.
And I want to give another shout out to Brenden, okay? Because this is all working. He's been really close advocate helping us. So there's times when I've been live on YouTube sitting in my shop and he's sending me text messages while I'm doing that to get the info out for you guys. So it's like there's kind of like some of us in all of these different corners just trying to collaborate because they're literally turning the lights out. The Democrats are not letting us know anything until it's too late.
And they come, they really do. It's just like you see on TV with the federal government. We don't even know what's gonna be on the agenda sometimes. We don't know, we don't get the bills until 20 minutes before we have to vote on them. You know, we're trying to scan through and read as quickly as we can, and we're relying on the lawyers to tell us, you know, the good, the bad, the ugly, the pros, the cons.
And we voted for you, not for secret lawyers and caucus people and whatever. We voted for you.
For me to read the bills and for me to vote for what
It's
the people
even
want.
more reason to find a way to get this publicly out about these people and what's going on, because people don't know.
I'm trying.
I
even a
get
rule
it,
for
but I mean,
like-
people just
like-
don't know.
We have a committee, so I serve on
because
3
if you
committees.
try
I
to
serve
voice
on the health policy, behavioral health, and family, children, and seniors. So there's an 18-hour rule that if we're, for some reason, the committee's gonna be canceled, we have to be notified or it has to be posted. I've been, Sam, they've not even notified me at all. And sometimes people are showing up and going to their committee hearing and doors closed, nobody's even there. They're not telling us any of this, and they're in control. They're in control, and I will hear it over and over again. The Republicans were not that bad to them. That's what I hear. They never treated them that way.
You kept them in the loop.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah, one thing about Randy saying, you know, that people say it can't happen here. Let me give you an example. It's a little different subject, but it gives you insight to the legislative process. We, the people, voted by petitions and that, and then on the referendum, right to work. Hey, she comes in and just doesn't end around. Well, that's show you how much respect and how fluid that the wrong people get in there. And, you know, it's just crazy.
It is very rumored that Gretchen Whitmer is running for the presidency.
Oh, good
And
Lord.
that is like a probably 98% likelihood.
Who in the hell?
Yeah, so that's like what Brenden said about them possibly
crazy.
shutting
Things
session
can happen.
down. That's why they switched the presidential.
Yeah, but right to work is just one thing, gun control, the whole thing is, it's the legislative process, they keep you out of the loop. I mean, so much for bipartisanship, but the doggone thing is, what do? I mean, you go, you say, these people at General Motors, wait till those electric cars come in, and they say, hundreds of jobs, no, it's gonna be thousands, there's less moving parts, so there's more than one way to screw a cat. Get back to gun control, real quick. I was a history major, and shortly, a couple of years after the Russian Revolution, around 1921, this is pre-communist Poland, when we handed them over to the communists, and we did that. Russia didn't conquer them. But one time they treated, Lenin thought in 1921, hey man, I'm an internationalist, a globalist, right? I'm gonna go into Poland. Well, most Polish people, it was cavalry then, but everybody had a gun. At the Battle of Vistula, the Russians got their asses handed to them, like the Ukrainians are doing now. But now, since communism, maybe they're getting their guns back, I don't know. But the first
Well,
thing
we
they
just
did
gotta
when they
be careful
occupied, they
in our own
got rid of the
world.
guns.
Yeah.
It's gotta be careful in our own world, and again, that's why we're here. Two more questions, real quick, or statement questions,
Yeah.
then we're gonna go on to the next one.
So the calls in your office, what's the percentage of pro and anti?
In my district, it's been way more pro.
That stack of petitions that they.
I mean,
worked on
again,
in
way more,
December.
yeah, we're a very strong Second Amendment, district. I've had way more,
What district are you in?
constituents reach out to me and say, vote no on gun control, vote no on gun control, vote no on gun control.
Very pro Second Amendment district, but she won by the second narrowest race margin in the whole state, so Second Amendment advocates need to vote for it too.
Yes.
It's an interesting dynamic district, it is.
Yeah, it's weird how they set the districts up this time, it really is. In this case, it worked out, but.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'll keep it short, because I know we're trying to move on. I think, along with some of the other points that I brought up, I think one thing that will really help this cause overall is we need a really, really strong PR campaign. We need to all of us probably remember, because this is kind of an older group, I'm 52, like the old Schoolhouse Rock campaign.
Yeah.
There needs to be some jingles, some stuff created, because that's what they're doing.
Yes.
They're tech savvy, they're on the front of things. We need to create some new sort of campaigns. We need some PR people, some mouthpieces and PR people that know how to create campaigns to push things and make it popular. We need to have some black faces running it.
Yes.
Because a lot of the stuff that they're running,
Yes.
they're using the black faces to try to push these movements. And I'll be honest with you, most of the people, my black friends, they don't think like that. And most of their kids, like my kids, if they're in their 20s, I got some below that too, they don't think like that either.
Well, they've been taking the black vote for granted forever.
But that's
It needs
my
to
whole
change.
point.
Yeah.
It's
It
like,
does need to
so,
change.
I think there needs to be some sort of strong PR campaign, something that's on social media, nice 30-second and 1-minute tidbits pushed all on things, make it really cool.
Yes.
But again, that's a PR campaign, that takes money, but I think that's what we need to be thinking forward focused, instead of not so defensive minded. Again, that's a particular offensive.
Sam, what are your thoughts on our messaging? I hear this daily.
But we'll bring this to our board, I was going here, the Monroe County Board of Commissioners voted 7-1 to reaffirm our Second Amendment rights.
Yep.
So,
They just did?
there's a little bit of progress out there.
Nice.
Monroe, you said? Just did?
Yep, this
Okay,
one,
so they're
Oh,
sticking
okay,
to it,
awesome.
they're
I
not
didn't know
gonna
that
enforce
happened.
it in Monroe County?
That's how quick things happen, so.
Yeah.
Bill, we're gonna go on, if it's a real quick statement,
Just one question. I'm a resident of Taylor. I'm not familiar with you. My representative is DeSana.
Correct. So DeSana and I
I've emailed
split
sent
Taylor.
letters. My question, the mayor was here, Woolley.
Yep.
We helped to elect this guy.
Mhm.
Through all this that's going on, I've sent letters numerous times to his office and Judge Joe Slavin to start up the possibilities of turning the city of Taylor into a two-way preservation city.
What?
You know,
Sanctuary.
city.
It's already there, it's Wayne County.
Wayne County's
Taylor.
never will be.
Yeah. So did you get a response?
None whatsoever from these people at all. Joe Slavin, no response. He's a neighbor of mine.
Okay.
No response from him at all. And I've contacted the mayor's office, I believe 3 times.
Did you-
Absolutely no response.
Did you email DeSana or call DeSana and let him know that?
No, that I haven't done.
Yeah, I would.
What's the next city council?
Talk to DeSana.
I'm gonna answer that question with a question, on my end of it. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think considering we elected to sit here and basically elected this
How do
guy
you
as
feel
mayor,
about that when you
it's
as a
like slap in
citizen,
my face. At least send me a letter and tell me that,
you write,
know what,
you
drop
call, you talk to your representative, they come to your door and ask you to vote for them, to represent, to hire them to be in Lansing or in their city, wherever it may be, and you don't get a response. And then you get what we're dealing with and what we're talking about right now.
Yeah.
And as this goes forward, my answer to that would be, when is it gonna be enough? When is the American citizens and when is Michigan citizens gonna say stop? When do you say stop?
Well, Thomas Jefferson said
Stop a long time
Yes.
ago.
He said it has to reach absolute despotism.
Yes, and we're getting to that point,
Getting pretty
and
close.
food in the fridge.
The only way that we're gonna come out of this, we're looking at, what, 2 years before we get another election where we can turn this around, a year and a half.
Well, really, a year from now, primaries will be right
Yeah.
spooling up.
Look how much damage has been done since January 1 till right now. This is somewhat, you can say what you want to, this could be irreversible. We have a lot of things right now. We're gonna ask this next question. I'm gonna ask this next question to this little panel. And it is talking about the pistol arm race. A lot of people don't understand the complexity of this. They have no idea what they're facing in the next 22 days, 23 days?
May 1st.
May 1st?
June 1st.
Yeah.
May 1st.
There's a lot of people that still have questions about this. And you know, the question is going to be to them, have you heard anything in Lansing about this? Because at some point, our law enforcement is going to have to get involved with its own citizens.
I personally am not. I know Mike and Brenden are up to date on more federal with the ATF and.
The ATF's completely out of its purview on this. There are some, this is where the courts do come into play, and the Supreme Court, and bump stocks are gonna go to the Supreme Court. And bump stocks happened in the Trump administration, and he ordered them to do that. That's where we have trouble on both sides of the aisle. This guns shouldn't be partisan, and both sides do this stuff. So.
No, bump stocks have not been overturned. Bump stocks have been twice now via a federal judge in the 6th Circuit and the 5th Circuit Court have been deemed unconstitutional. If you live in 3 states, you can own a bump stock.
No.
Texas?
Still no, because here's why. Yes, the 5th Circuit, the full 5th Circuit panel decided they were unconstitutional. They remanded it down to the lower district court judge, okay, in Texas. They stayed their own decision because now it's getting appealed to the Supreme Court. So it's still actually technically unlawful right now in Texas, Mississippi, Louisiana. Same thing with the 6th Circuit. It was recently big news that the 6th Circuit Court of Appeals found that the bump stock ban was unconstitutional. That's not a machine gun. Now keep in mind, about a year ago, the 3-judge panel said that the ruling was unconstitutional. Then they went what's called en banc, which is the whole panel, and they actually sided back with the original district judge by literally tying. They tied like 8-8. When it's gridlock, it goes back down. So there's a newer panel out of the 6th Circuit, which is in Western Michigan. This is federal courts that have said, no, the bump stocks can't be considered a machine gun. However, before anyone just goes and grabs one and uses it, you guys do what you want. I'm not a cop, I don't care. But they have to remand it back down to the lower judge, and then they have to rule in the way they tell them to. But that's not gonna happen either, because that's actually also going to the Supreme Court. In the end, I think it's gonna be a big victory, but right this minute, it is not lawful for anybody in the country to possess a bump stock.
Well, the problem with bump stocks too is that not as nearly many people have owned them. It's like FRT triggers, for example.
Well,
so there's not as much of a.
Yeah, you have a large constituency of them, which of course with pistol braces, you have up to 40 million of them. Exactly. And that's gonna be a very large impact on people. And it was interesting watching there's a House Judiciary Committee hearing last week where ATF Director Steve Dettelbach was just being berated by Jim Jordan and by Thomas Massey, and I thought they did a great job just to show how convoluted this rule is.
I thought Congress voted on that.
So they are going to vote on a Congressional Review Act to strike it down, but it still has to go through both chambers, and that ain't gonna happen.
I also heard that now that Joe Biden has to sign it too, whereas before they said no.
It would have to be a law.
Right.
Well,
and that
Trump had to sign it when they did a repeal of the Obama's Social Security gun ban. So the problem is that it's going to go into effect, and it's going to put a lot of people in legal limbo because the rule, and I've been digging into myself recently. It's very complex. Dettelbach acted like it was easy to comply with. Well, we try to make it as easy as possible. All you have to do is detach the pistol brace from the firearm, and then they're not going to go after you. Congressman Massey asked that exact question about constructive possession, whether or not they're gonna prosecute on that. Dettelbach said yes, but the ATF's own website basically says, or no, Dettelbach said no, they're not gonna do constructive possession prosecutions, but the ATF's website contradicts him. And actually the rule contradicts, because the firearm has to be altered, or the pistol brace has to be altered to the point where it cannot be reattached.
In constructive possession, this is thought crime. This is, you haven't done anything wrong, but you have the physical capability that you could.
Yeah.
So they will prosecute you as though you did, because you didn't do it, but you could have.
Yeah.
Like the key card. What's this, the minority?
Yes.
Tom Cruise?
So question is, I just wanna be, because I'm actually affected by this, because I bought a Springfield Armory St. Edge pistol from this store back in 2019. Has a 10.3-inch barrel and has a Maxim Defense arm brace. So I bought it brand new from the manufacturer from this store. I didn't add anything to it, the brace, it was bought like that from the manufacturer. So, right now, what are my options? We're about to have the end of the...
Longer barrel.
Say that again?
Longer barrel.
Okay.
To get it to where it's 16-inch overall.
Okay.
It could include pending and welding devices. Your gunsmith should know the laws with that, if not, contact an attorney. You could remove the brace, and like Brenden just said, you have to make it where the brace can no longer be attached to it. So that would imply you have to, like, I guess, damage your own brace to where it wouldn't fit on that anymore.
Change the buffers.
Or they will allow you to go through with the National Firearms Act, pursuant to that, and get a tax stamp. Now, they claim that that's free of charge right now, but it's still my opinion. I'm not a lawyer, guys. It's just my opinion. That it's a trap, because the statute.
You're gonna admit that you own
the actual law, the NFA, you're now admitting that you're breaking the law, first of all. Because they're saying braces were always illegal. It's just they're giving you a certain amount of time that they're not gonna prosecute you to come in compliance. So you're admitting you're breaking a law if you do that. Second of all, it puts it on the National Registry. It limits it where you can't cross state lines with it. And I don't see any without a permission slip, which they're log jammed with that. That can take months and months and months.
Yep.
And I don't see anything in the actual, and I did this on a live stream a couple months ago. I pulled up the actual statute, and it said that it said that the ATF shall collect, Department of Treasury, I'm sorry. This is through the IRS essentially. The Department of Treasury shall collect the $200. So the statutes that talk about this don't even give, in my opinion, not legal advice, the ATF to even waive this tax stamp. So it's really, really convoluted, and you guys need to talk to somebody you trust. Maybe it's a lawyer. They're not
Another scheme to grab serial numbers today.
It goes on the National Registry, yes, it becomes registered.
Yep.
How did the ATF even get to the position to be able to do this? This is an act, I guess, that would have to go through.
On the tax collecting, through the IRS, if you go all the way back through, it's to collect taxes on this $200 usually, or sometimes it's a $5 tax stamp.
So why do they need those IRS agents if they already got the ATF?
It's an interesting question that you're asking there, because the Obama administration, the ATF under the Obama administration said that they did not have the authority to regulate pistol braces under the NFA. Now all of a sudden, actually there was 2 letters, if I remember correctly.
When I bought my first brace, I got a letter right in the box with it. Does anyone remember that?
What I'm gonna say here is gonna be controversial, but I think it's true. The ATF also said that it did not have the authority to regulate bump stocks. And then you had in a presidential administration, the Trump administration, basically tell the ATF, find a way to make it illegal. And now it opened up a Pandora's box.
Yes.
Because now you have pistol braces, they're going after ghost guns, they're going after force reset triggers.
A card that has something etched in it called the auto
Yeah,
key
I
card.
mean, it's open a Pandora's box, which is really bad news. There is some good news though. There's the Supreme Court's taken off a case that is gonna go after Chevron deference. If anyone knows what, Chevron deference is basically the idea that it's assumed that if a government agency is using a certain power, it has the authority. And what could possibly go wrong with that, right? Where we're basically saying, well, you know, that's okay. They must be, we're operating within the confines of the law. And I mean, they're doing this, you look at the growth of the administrative state, you know, all the various issues that we care about, that you could care about, the administrative state is growing like a large leviathan with all its tentacles going
That's
in
right.
every part of our lives. If Chevron deference gets struck down, a lot of these ATF rules probably go to the wayside.
Are you talking about that fishing case that might really put it to a test?
Yeah, I think that, yeah, that's the one.
It was a fishing case of all things.
Leviathan, follow the Tuttle
Well,
Twins.
they already shot down the EPA
Oh,
case.
You know the Tuttle Twins books?
Yeah, I've heard of them, yeah.
Yeah, so one of the books,
Okay.
Leviathan, and it's about that.
Yeah.
And,
So
yeah,
doesn't the
my
Constitution literally make the,
No.
like the 10th Amendment, isn't that literally like a rebuke of Chevron deference? Or whatever?
Yes, but that's, to your point though, is that, and this is a really good summary, is that the Constitution is only as good as the paper that it's printed on.
I too have read Lysander Spooner.
What's that?
I too have read Lysander
Yeah,
Spooner.
but it's a reality that, and you know, to your point, you know, there's a point about, well, we should go after them legally. I'm an all of the above approach. Like, you have concerns about the election process. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't vote. Still vote. If you're concerned that they're not answering your phone calls, still call. Because regardless, politicians want to get reelected. And they have to make decisions of how many constituents can I piss off on how many various issues before I can lose my reelection. Now, many of these people are crazy in Lansing right now. And right now they don't really care because leftists are going for the long game, where they realize that if they get policy passed, it's going to be a lot harder to undo it. But that's where my job as a gun rights activist with my organization to continue to remind voters in key districts around the state what these people did and make sure that they show up to vote in the polls and make sure that they are held accountable. I've seen time and again where if one or two politicians lose on a certain issue, the rest of the herd starts behaving itself. And that's key. You have to continue to vote. You have to hold them accountable, and then you have to make it clear to them why they are losing your vote or why they never had it in the first place.
That's a good point. Make it clear why they lost your vote.
Yeah.
You know what it reminded me of real quick? I know there's a question in the back. This capital ban with this commission. This reminds me of the ATF. Nobody voted for any of these people on the commission.
That's what I said, nobody,
Yeah.
the people didn't vote them to be.
Well, and the Capital Commission did not have this authority until Dana Nessel gave them that authority.
Yeah, I told them they did.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be to like keep the grounds up, you know?
Yeah, we're losing representation.
I know, the gentleman back there.
Yeah, Bill.
Yeah, I was curious, they had ordered lower, it's got a binary trigger Frankfurt. So are they gonna be going after that now or after that?
In my opinion, probably until this Chevron deference can get overturned in the Supreme Court is what it's gonna take. Because it's a 1984 or 86 case in the Supreme Court. Yeah, though, I think they're gonna get to the point because they're noticing, if you look at the forced reset trigger analysis, the bump stock, they're talking about rates of fire. If this stuff doesn't all get smacked down quick, they'll probably say if you just shoot too fast, it's gonna be a machine gun. They're just gonna keep moving it further and further.
Register your fingers.
Yeah, Jamie said when you give them
They'll wanna take them
Only for after
so
1986.
they can, so they got.
You know what's funny is my friend, you guys know the Iraq veteran 8888 channel he's on YouTube?
Yeah.
I've been at his event 3 times in a row now, and he's an awesome dude in real life. He's actually like an in-law with Jerry Michalek, which is one of the best professional shooters in our lifetime, certainly. They had a competition where Eric had the bump stock, that's when they were still legal, and Michalek outgunned him with his trigger finger. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah.
That video's probably not on YouTube anymore because YouTube banned bump stock videos, but at one time you could have watched that.
Yeah.
Okay, funny, because a lot of the questions that I had on you all have asked, and we've answered a lot of these. You know, I have a question, and I guess it's a knowledge type thing. Why didn't the Republicans, when we voted this universal background check, I think that on our end of it, we knew what it was. Why wasn't there a push on explaining what this is prior to getting voted on? is there anything that,
I think there were representatives that are better at social media that were doing it on their own. But as a whole, I wish I had an answer. I think that the best representatives are the ones that take the time. Ken Borton's really good about making really informed videos on his votes. Like, this bill's gonna be coming out. Yeah, that's not a good thing. I mean, Micah did a good job with it. He did some videos and talked about it.
I sat down with her and Senator Bellino.
Yeah,
and maybe some of your
did.
senators.
Yeah, we
And
did.
we tried to talk about this. I'm a small YouTube channel, but
Yeah.
we're trying, but it's really
Yeah,
what the
it
gentleman
was-
said here. We're in a culture war. And politics, as Andrew Breitbart used to say, is downstream from culture. We are in a culture war. But there is some good people fighting back.
It comes back to
So-
the messaging when we talk about it, our messaging. And Sam, he's a young 24-year-old, solid, hardcore conservative, probably since he was in his mother's stomach. And he says our messaging is terrible.
I also think that there were some Democrats, and I know, like, talking to representatives and representatives from other kind of organizations who actually had opportunities to talk to Democrats, they don't talk to me, that when they actually got into the minutia of the bills, they realized that what they were doing was wrong.
Really?
And they did it anyway.
They did it anyway.
They're part of the machine.
Because, yeah, they're part of the machine, and with how slim those majorities are, it was funny, on the gun licensing bills. I was watching the roll call vote on that, and I saw Jim Hadsma be the last vote on that bill.
That's interesting too.
He held out the last Democrat to vote on that bill, and I think he was hoping for a Republican solution. I could be wrong on that, but I know that there are some of them.
That's what they tell you. If you're not sure about your vote, or you don't want to be the only one that votes funny, just hold back and wait.
Yeah.
Watch the votes and see who. I don't personally get that.
Well, in some cases, somebody.
I mean, I guess I don't know, it's each his own on what their belief system is, but, this is nothing to do with guns.
But if
But
you,
it
the
is
key
about
though
your
with the roll
rights.
calls though is that we actually know how they vote and then we can hold them accountable.
Yeah, that does.
Otherwise they
hurt
can
you
lie
guys.
about it.
I do like
Well,
to see it public for the public.
I mean, a blind vote after the
Where no one
fact
can
for it
see
to be
it. Oh,
recorded,
yeah.
but while it's happening, so that way you can't see which way the wind is blowing as the person who's voting to know which way, okay, my team is already winning, I need to jump on that.
I understand that, but there is still, I'm still leery of that. Everything to me should be public in real time, because look at my friend's concern here about these voting machines where everything's counted behind the scenes. I do like the fact that it is in front of us in real time. You can't rig a live vote when I can be sitting there 30 feet away watching them vote. So there is a couple ways to look at that.
I have a couple questions back here. You and then, young man behind you.
Yeah, when you talk about messaging from the Republican Party, I think that one of the big things that the Republican caucus really needs to do is think about why did we lose, right, after 4 decades. And I recently moved here. I moved from New Jersey literally in January, so I wasn't here when this took place. However, I did watch from the sidelines, and what Whitmer was doing in this state was national news. I was very well aware of it in New Jersey. Many people were. The draconian lockdowns, the gardening section of Walmart is too dangerous, but the eggs and milk aren't. And even with all that craziness, they got reelected.
But people forget, that's one point. I never expected in a million years that people would forget what Governor Whitmer did to the state.
Yeah, but that was all about the abortion.
I was gonna say, do you think that abortion was like the big thing?
It was. It was. It really was, because the day of the polls, I don't know how many of you paid attention to the polls to the extent, but I remember at my polling locations on the day of the general, and people were telling me, oh, there's a ton of people here, this is good, because when there's usually a good in-person vote turnout, it's gonna be a Republican win. And I'm like, no, look around you. It was young people, first-time voters who had never voted. You would hear cheers from the polling locations, because they were first-time voters. You could look around, and I don't want to be, discriminatory to anyone, but there was blue, purple, earring noses, all the, crazy stuff going on, and you're like, oh no, this isn't
Those are
going,
indicators.
this is not gonna go well.
Oh, yeah. But Jamie, most people are fools or cowards. I have a classmate, we're 78 years old. She's touting socialism. And she's not these crazies you talk about, the young people. She
They
should,
scared a lot of, you know, and it was like the
Yeah,
young
it's-
boys were coming out to stand with the young women about their body, their choice. And it
Except
was
in
these
COVID.
young girls that were thinking that if they, you know, accidentally got pregnant and it was an ectopic pregnancy, that they were going to be allowed to die. And these girls believed that.
yeah.
And to try to tell them, honey, that an ectopic pregnancy is a you know, an embryo in your fallopian tube that will never develop, and it's a medical procedure, and they're not going to let you die. One has
Right.
nothing to do with the other. They are so convinced from the media and from their liberal teachers that
Yes.
they're brainwashed. Our
Yeah.
children are
Yeah.
brainwashed.
That's why it's a war. It really is a war. It's a culture war.
Well, that's why they want to ban BB guns, because that's how you get gun culture. Just think about this stuff.
Right.
There's a reason for all of this.
Call of Duty.
Elementary school, but yes.
Hold on 1 minute, Greg, you have something to say?
Once again, too many Republicans up there, no guts. They're afraid of the media, they're afraid of Queen Whitler. There you go.
She's not. We have 3 videos coming out on my channel soon.
This is an interesting analogy. Back when we were attacking cigarette smokers, okay? They turn around, they posted billboards that if kids hadn't smoked by the time they attained 18 years old, the likeliness of them ever smoking was nil. Billboards in Missouri today are saying the same thing in relationship to guns. If you haven't got your child or whatever involved in the shooting sports or whatever by the time they're 18, or taught them the safe handling of guns by the time they were 18, the likeliness of them owning guns, nil.
That's a good.
They're attacking it in the same way they did cigarettes.
You're right.
Why'd they take cigarettes away, and then now you got those pipes that,
Yeah, everybody's
No,
vaping
I mean,
nowadays.
worse than that.
you
Took
know,
cigarettes away, but we gained
I mean,
marijuana.
cigarettes to me are better than,
Interesting.
you don't know what you're smoking.
Well, because one contains nicotine, the other.
Well, do you know that?
Oh, no, they changed nicotine.
I guess it's
10,000
not so much
Arabic
about the
people drink
cigarettes.
till they can't be wrong.
I know it, I know 95-year-old men still smoking and drinking, and they're still going like a 10.
Anyone else warm?
Yeah.
Yay! I think a woman had to say it. I'm hot. You don't want a woman hot.
Yeah, we do, that's all we all want.
Oh, they get feisty. My husband knows me now. Let me get overheated.
My wife's been telling me to shut up all night.
Mine divorced me a few years back. All right.
Oh, thank you. That breeze feels good.
Yeah, it does, feels great. Yes, sir.
I'm not sure if this applies to pistol braces or not, but I have one of those little Remington 870 TAC-14s, and I can't tell you what that is.
I can tell you what that is. Okay, on the ruling, myself and Mike got to sit in on the ATF ruling on pistol brace, and they brought up the TAC-14, TAC-13, and the Shockwave. They are not changing the Shockwave or anything like that. The only thing that you will not be able to do is the arm brace that you can attach to that. So as long as you keep the bird's head grip on it the way it is, you're perfectly legal to have that.
And it's called a firearm legally.
Yeah. Firearm.
AOW is an NFA item.
Yep.
That's $5.
Now, on the Shockwave, can you still have the,
Yes, the wrap on the front,
The
as
wrap?
long as it's in the original configuration,
Right.
without the SB tactical brace that you were able to get for it, you're perfectly fine.
Which makes it very cumbersome.
So it's still classified as any other weapon?
Any other weapon's an NFA item, and that's the one with the $5 tax stamp, but all of the other provisions of the NFA still
Now-
apply.
I thought that's what those 14-inch shotguns was.
Well, if you modified it, it could easily become one, but
Yeah, you
not the
could,
way they're sold.
which has raised the question
That's the
earlier
story.
from one of my colleagues back here. Could you change that Shockwave to a sure barrel shotgun?
I was
No.
considering that.
Not free. You can do it, but you can't do it free via the
I talked to somebody else who's an FFL, and he's really big into legal too, and he said you can use that amnesty form for that as well.
When I was on the actual call, they said you could not. But-
Is it if it's equipped with a brace or not? Even if it's equipped with a brace, you still couldn't, right?
Yeah, you could not, change it with the brace, or you could make it a short barrel shotgun if you do the $200 tax stamp.
Yes.
But that wasn't under the amnesty period.
I do remember that it was a minutia that they specifically said for short barrel rifles.
Yes.
And a shotgun is not a rifle.
Right.
I do remember that.
There's all kinds of stipulations behind that as well, isn't there?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Doing that, I'm the only individual that can have access to that fire.
Unless you do a trust, yes, sir.
Right, I gotta lock it up. I'm the only one, if somebody was breaking my house, I wasn't home, I was on the road. My wife, no, she can't have access to that fire. Because of the way this is set up, I guess.
I've got a little lanyard that goes around my hand and that crow's head. Is that considered a pistol range?
That's fine.
That's okay? Okay.
Yep.
I put that
Yeah,
on
that doesn't
because she
change
likes
the
to.
configuration.
As of right now, who knows in a year, right?
What was the question about
Like,
that?
back, give the inch, take them out.
I have a little strap around
Oh, the bird's head.
The bird's
It
head
just
that came
keeps
with
it out
it,
of
it's
the
a little
heat.
strap so it doesn't fly out.
But it has to be the bird's head, you can't use like a whole tamer or anything.
No.
Well, they said, under the brace rule, guys, they said you can't have anything rearward beyond what's the functionally required parts of the gun. So the way I read it is, if you had an AK pistol with a Picatinny rail section in the back, remove the brace, you still have that Picatinny rail section sticking back a half inch, and they do specifically address anything rearward that doesn't require the firearm to function.
Right.
ARs generally, although this is changing a lot lately, generally need the receiver extension or buffer tube. AKs need nothing back there, so there's gonna be a bunch of stuff that if they wanna get you on, is very gray.
What did I say when I
What
shot
about
that
a front
AR? I
grip
was like,
on
that's
an
the AR?
AK,
Yeah.
for an AR?
The
She
full
shot,
rifle you can, but not on a pistol.
she shot an AR with a brace when we were, I have a range video I'm gonna put out soon showing her shoot.
And I was
Back
like,
it.
that's
You
the
did.
AR? I was like, and the one, and I apologize, I'm a nurse. I mean, I could talk about nursing and healthcare and diagnosis and stuff. I'm a Second Amendment supporter, but I'm not gonna lie, I don't know a lot of the things that you guys are talking about. I just know when it comes to the Second Amendment, I don't bend. There's that hill I'll die on, and there's a couple other hills I'll die on. But, the education and, but I don't pretend to know everything about infrastructure and electricity and things like that, but I rely on
Yeah, exactly
the
right.
education.
Yes.
Well, that was cool then though, you shot the
Yeah,
AR
but
for
yeah,
the
so
first
we went out
time.
and I did, and the one that I felt had more kick was the AK, right? And the AR, I literally was like, that was the AR, and they were laughing.
She's like, that's it?
I'm
I
like,
thought
that's
this,
it. Yeah, it was pretty cool video.
Hey, quick question. So, the question I have, it's about the AR brace. And this is like an unofficial thing, so I'm not asking I know you're not attorneys, or I don't think any of you guys are attorneys like you stated earlier. So I'm not trying to hold nobody's feet to the fire. I just want to, off the record, sort of, do you think this would be a good idea? My question is, I don't know what direction to take about the AR brace and this new law potentially coming down the pipe. So what I was thinking, because again, I'm trying to find a way, how could I split hairs? I was going to disassemble it, maybe take the upper from the lower, keep one in the gun safe here, put something in another gun safe in another off-site location. That way they're not even in the same house and it's still locked
See,
up.
Dottlebeck made it sound like that was gonna be okay, but in the ruling, I read that you have to make it where it's inoperable and can't be reattached.
The brace has to come totally off the gun. I sat through 2 of the 4 meetings, and they said, the first meeting, they said 4 times that you could leave, if you have the tube on the back, the M4 tube that has 6 positions, you could leave that existing tube on there, okay? Never in the history of the NFA have you been able to do that since 1934. That has never been able to do. That's always been constructive intent,
Yes.
okay? So we've recommended that you purchase the round tube where no brace can go on that tube, and you put that round tube on there, and that would make you completely safe, and you can still carry that firearm the same way you do now, use it the same way you do, but it has no ability for that brace to go back on it.
But the SBA 3 comes with its own special tube, and this just keeps getting more and more complicated.
Right, so
as we go through.
We've actually asked them if they were in 2 different locations, if the gun with that round tube was by your bed and the SBA 3 brace is in your garage locked up, if that would be sufficient. They would not answer the question.
They did
Twice.
this. I thought they said something during that ATF seminar though, that you don't have to change out the buffer, do you?
They said you do not have to change the buffer tube.
yeah.
You could leave the same SBA three tube that was on there, which is virtually a.
And I never heard the
enforced
thing
out.
about having to alter your arm brace, so it won't go back on anymore. This is the first time hearing that.
Yeah, they do not want it to go back on there. You can't let it go back on there. So. Yep.
I spent like $1,500.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
I literally spent $1,500.
And we're supposed to have a takings clause, that they can't take your property without just compensation, I mean, all of it. But here's the thing, we let them do it with bump stocks, as people said, hey, Trump's from our own party, they're stupid, they waste ammo. I was advocating for the bump stocks on my channel, and I have gun people and Second Amendment people, the only people that watch me. My YouTube channel stats was in the red. Do you know how many subs I lost when I said, guys, we need to stop this? Who cares if it's Trump? We need to advocate. We need to hold Trump's feet to the fire more. And people say, oh, you have to give him a pass because he's way better than Hillary, who ran against him. And then people say, you're just stupid anyways because it wastes ammo. We fight so hard amongst ourselves, not us here, but just the community. We're our own worst enemy with this stuff.
The precedence that it set by him doing that is where we're at with the arm brace, with the upper and lower receiver ruling that's going through right now. All of that is because of what the arm or the bump stock did.
He did something unprecedented. The ATF for over a decade had said we
Has he ever come
can't
out
do
and
it.
made a public statement for people, for the opposition to that? Has anyone ever, has he come out and said anything about that?
Who's that?
Trump.
No.
He's
Never-
not
I've never
his
seen.
braces ever
No, he's
since.
also wrong on red flag too, so.
Yes.
That's where
And
it
his
stopped.
son, and I love him to pieces, if he wrote it tomorrow, I probably, I have to vote for him because of the alternative. But his son was in our store and he said, yeah, my dad is for the suppressors and he would, make sure that they're gonna come off the NFA. And then out of his own words, said that he doesn't like them anyways, on camera, he
I
said
remember
that.
that.
Yeah, so,
Look, guys, we had Speaker Ryan, we had Senate Majority Leader McConnell and Trump. We should have been able to order any pro-gun bills off of a menu.
yes.
And nothing good
Nothing
happened.
done, nothing got done, nothing.
That way you had two losers, McConnell and Ryan.
Right.
Yeah.
They're rhinos.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, they're Republicans. That's why we need pro-gun people, pro-Second Amendment people in office.
Good God, we can't even get a good one to run for the Senate in this state.
I think it's beyond Republicans and Democrats. It's just like-minded people.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, there's a lot of rhinos.
Yeah.
And
Any
he
given
always
day.
says all the time, he don't care if it's.
So it's like,
So the
Yeah.
we need
question is,
to
what do we
change
do
our
about it? What do we do about it? As a collective group, as people? Yeah, we do. We're really good at complaining, but we're not good
I
at
think we're
changing.
past the issue though of complaining.
It is.
Because it goes on deaf ears.
Yep.
No,
It
it's
does.
time to attack these.
Back to what I asked you before.
Education.
Does it feel to not be, have your questions answered, for your phone calls not to be answered? How does that feel? Isn't it time we say stop?
We're being ignored.
We are American citizens, we're Michigan citizens. I sat in a room with a young man that was running against Rashida Tlaib a little over a year ago, a couple years ago, whatever. And I made a statement to him, because they asked me a question, and the statement I made to him was, I said, you understand if you do get into office, and I hope you do, that when you get there, you are going to govern, or you're going to represent Republicans and Democrats, not just one. So they have that same obligation to us. I get it that you want all these wonderful gun regulations to go through as a Democrat. You're gonna vote across party lines, I get it. But what I don't get is you don't look at me, my family, my job, you and your family. It's time they do. It's time we say stop.
Right.
Can I tell you that that's what got me across the finish line in the district when all the Republicans lost? I mean, Mike has got to know me pretty well. I knocked doors as a person that was genuine, and my message was that I was not heard by my Democrat, Darren Camilleri was my representative for 6 years. My voice didn't matter. It was his opinion. It didn't matter that I had a different opinion than him. And when I would tell people, I'm a nurse, I took an oath to do no harm to my patient. When I take an oath to represent my district, that means that I have to represent people that I may not agree with. But I have to listen to them, I have to talk to them, I have to explain why I made a vote a certain way, I have to I mean, I can have discussions with people where they've come to my meet and greets and they wanted to hate me. They really wanted to hate me. They were so mad that I voted no to repeal right to work, or that I voted no on that abortion thing. But I listened to them, I explained my point, I explained why other people had a different opinion, and I just cared what they had to say. And then they left with the okay. I mean, it has to be personal, because I could never not represent everybody. I won by 700, if I won by 794 votes, that's how many people that did not vote for me, that I still have to listen to them because I still represent them.
Right.
And that's what I used to tell Darren Kamler, you do not get to not listen to me, because you still represent me.
See, you're an anomaly though. That's the problem. You are the anomaly. And there's a few of the people that are like that, but there's many of them that are not. That's why somehow, some way, this information has to get to people, because there's millions of people who hunt, and we talk about this all the time. They just don't care, because they believe that this is never going to happen.
We tried having
But
two-way tapes.
somehow this information has to get out publicly.
We
right?
tried having all of these things here, and I got a guy, he lives in New Boston. Greg, can't think of his name, but he lives in New Boston. He belongs to the Hunter, there's a big hunting club in New Boston, Huron area. Sportsman's Club, Brian Moore, yeah. He's like, this is a great, big, huge sportsman's club. I mean, the money they raise is phenomenal, the gun raffles they do, and he keeps telling them, man, come to this meeting. They're taking away our rights. We need to have this meeting. We need to talk about this. We need to educate people. They didn't want nothing to do with it. They would still vote for the Democrat.
Yep.
I really do.
Respectfully, Jamie, your rights are being taken away, but most people just rolled over.
Yeah, this is true.
Put on a mask, we don't have to wear a mask.
You have two, real quick, I want to tell you two things that are disturbing to me, because you guys seem like a solid bunch of conservative, libertarian, constitutional minded type people. So, the bill passed the House that it's going to be hands-free driving, or hands-free phone. So you will no longer be able to physically touch your phone when you're in your car. So if they see you answer your phone, check your phone for a GPS, check on your child.
Check the tornado warning.
Check the tornado warning, you will get.
Can you still eat a sandwich?
That's what I said. Well, the push was, but we have laws for reckless driving. We have laws for reckless driving. We have laws for no texting. We have these laws already, but now they're making new laws.
Same as you have laws
So
against
there's-
using guns and
So there's the
armed
law
robbery
about the
and
texting,
murder.
that's gonna really, I don't even know how that's gonna work, man, because
Well, and,
So
and
there's
I
that.
think about the practicality too of the purchase permit system that they're putting in, how much extra work that's gonna put on local government.
Yeah.
I mean, that's gonna put
So
massive.
you're gonna have less police officers on the streets
Yeah.
and more inside
Yeah.
doing.
How's that gonna go with our first responders?
They'll probably just raise your
There was
taxes
the
and hire
first,
more
there is
people.
the bill too with the first responders.
Yes, but you would
You
have
have to
to,
show your CPL if you come in contact with any first responder.
firemen,
Firemen,
EMS,
EMTs.
even the ones that train there,
Airport workers?
what?
Yeah,
Teaching
I'm
universities.
so worried about that. I gotta do an accident. My wife was injured. The first thing I was gonna tell her.
If
Oh,
you're
yeah, by the
CPL
way,
holder,
I
if you come in
I
contact with a
I'm aware
first
of it.
responder,
It's
police
weird.
officer, EMT, paramedic.
But you have to acknowledge, like, you have to do
You
like
have to
when
tell them I
you
have
have your CPR, you
I
have
just-
to say, hey, I have a CPR, I have a weapon on me.
I just did a video on YouTube for that. I'm not trying to just oversmoke my family, but all these things people have questions about, I've done videos on all of them.
There's another one that they're voting on that you might wanna message your representative and let them know.
Hold on, guys.
In
Listen, this is really important.
in a construction zone, in certain construction zones, this did not get voted on today because the Democrats did not have votes. So they were hoping that they were gonna get enough votes from the Republicans, because there are a few Republicans, just maybe 4 or 5, that wanna vote yes on this. So in certain construction zones, they're installing the laser cameras. So if if you go over 10 miles over the posted speed limit, it flashes your license plate and issues the owner of the vehicle a ticket. Okay. So that means that if you're a child or you're a business and you own trucks or you have drivers or someone else is driving a vehicle, you would have to sign an affidavit that that was not you. So it could be if your child was driving, you're gonna throw your kid under the bus, or it's gonna be you that gets that ticket.
Those things are notoriously inaccurate.
That's like the Ohio thing, right? So it did not pass, they didn't put it up for a vote today because there's a few Democrats that don't want it. And there's, 4 or 5 Republicans that may vote for it. So I don't want Michigan turning into an Ohio state where they're flashing our, I mean, it's like you said, can you drink milk in the car? I'm just like, I mean, I get it. My daughter died in a motorcycle accident. She was killed and thrown from a bike at 24 years old. I understand dangers in driving and dangers, but I still don't, people are blown away because they're like, you're a nurse. Why wouldn't you want to reverse the helmet law? Why do you think it's okay for people to drive without helmet laws? I said, my daughter was killed with a helmet on because the helmet flew off and people still have free rights and free choices. The same thing with guns. And they're like, well, you've had to see enough, gunshot wounds that we thought you would be totally against guns. And they're like, you're just like, I didn't expect that from a nurse. I've seen a lot, I've seen everything, but stop taking away our rights because we don't have many left.
I got something for you that maybe you could actually use, keep it as ammo or an arrow in your quiver when you speak to some of your colleagues in the legislature. So let's think about a pencil, a number 2 pencil. Let's think about somebody that flunks a test, like a Scantron test. We should take all those standardized tests, a Scantron.
Yeah.
So people that flunk a test, right? Well, let's blame the pencil. Let's get rid of the pencil manufacturers because people flunk these Scantron tests.
Yeah.
That doesn't make a lot of sense. It's the same thing to do with guns. It's the person behind it. But here's another thing I just thought about relating to the pencil. Imagine this. Imagine if the legislature, the federal government, whoever, bans pencils to be used by anybody under the age of 18. And the reason why is this. Because it contains lead. And a kid could get lead poisoning. See, the thing is this. There's always going to be 1,000,001 things that somebody can create to hurt you if you're looking for it. When I was a kid, I remember the big old thing about the Tylenol scare. So that's when they created the aluminum foil and the safety caps on it. Some of the older people here will remember that when people were getting, somebody was poisoning a couple of bottles of the Tylenol. So that's when they started creating the safety caps. Before then, there was no safety caps. So it's about the evil that's in men's heart, women, whoever it may be.
Yeah.
All that other stuff is just the ancillary or afterthought because of that. It's just a tool in which to display your evilness.
Yeah.
So that potentially could be something you could use. There's 2 things about a pencil. 1, flunking a Scantron test. 2, let's ban pencils for anybody under the age of 18 because of lead poisoning. I'm a realtor now, so we talk about lead poisoning, homes built after 1978.
They're still spending the money. They wanted to put so many millions and millions. The DHS came and asked for millions and millions and millions of dollars for these projects to make sure that children. So, and the craziness was that anything higher than a 3.5 blood level for a child sparks documentation. But a blood level for a child with lead poisoning has to be like into the 60s or more to require any type of medical intervention.
Right.
So
there's a big old gap.
And then I asked them, you want all these millions of dollars to do certain things because you're so concerned about lead poisoning in Michigan. So how many children did you test in 2022? There was like, I think they said 150,000. And I said, how many children had a blood level of 3.5 or higher? It was like 3,000. So out of 150,000 children, 3,000 had a 3.5 or higher, but you want millions and millions of dollars to do this big thing where you were replacing everybody's faucets, programs to test, more money for messaging. And I said, well, we've got the biggest mental health crisis in the state of Michigan, and kids are killing themselves, and this is our focus? This is what we're going to spend our money on?
You just reminded me of something. The other side, I see you back there, man. The other side is lying to you about something. They say that the #1 cause of death for children is firearms.
Yeah, they're pushing that.
Negative. But what they won't tell you is
uniquely American issue, right? Uniquely American issue.
There are all the mass shootings, quote unquote, that happen in other countries, but they've now changed the child to include somebody already up to 19 years old. So this includes all the gangbangers.
Yeah.
A school shooting could be in the middle of summer vacation, 3 blocks away, that counts as a school shooting. They're literally changing all of the metrics for these stats to the point where they're just literally blatant lies. And you guys need to remind your friends of that too.
And the self-inflicted gunshot wounds too, they're blaming it gun violence, when there was suicides by gun. They're calling them gun violence.
You probably didn't stand up to.
Yes, I think that we need to find a way to extract issues from ideology. Meaning that I know that there are lots of Democrats that believe in a Second Amendment, that practice the Second Amendment. There's lots of Republicans, obviously, that voted for its abortion. You know, so we need to figure out a way to get the issue of gun ownership, gun rights out of an ideology. Either you're all this or you're all that. You can be
That's a very good point.
a Democrat that loves their guns, or loves their Second Amendment.
You're right, because we become like cliques in high school.
But so we found a way to alienate people with ideologies instead of including people with issues, rallying around a specific issue instead of lumping them into a group of an ideology.
Well, what I can say to that is, you know, I've spoken a lot about the Democrats here. I've also spoken a lot about the Republicans. You know, as a gun rights organization, I'm a nonpartisan organization. My issue is guns. If you're wrong on guns, I got a problem with you. If you're good on guns, I don't have a problem with you. You know, actually back in 2017, when we first got constitutional carry out of the House here, we had 4 Democrats vote for it. Scott Diane up in the UP, John Shurkin, and at least 1 or 2 others. I can't remember their names though, but you had, and when Maine passed constitutional carry, it passed through a Democrat-controlled chamber. You had other states too where Democrats, actually in Nebraska, you had a Democrat from Omaha who he didn't vote for the bill on passage, but he didn't vote to block constitutional carry to end debate because ultimately he saw that the bill would actually do his constituency well, though he couldn't vote for it himself. So, you know, yes, absolutely, it needs to be a nonpartisan issue. The problem is that right now, especially in Michigan, it has become such, the Democratic Party has become a bought and paid for wing of the gun control lobby right now. And yeah, the pro-gun Democrats, if you're a pro-gun Democrat and you live in a district that's represented by a Democrat, make sure that they know that you're opposed to what they're doing. You know, if you're a pro-gun Democrat living in a Republican district, let them know that you agree with them. Yeah, I mean,
I had one in Monroe tell me that.
yeah, become a single issue voter. I mean, I really do believe that this whole purchase permit stuff, it has the possibility of waking up a sleeping giant in the state, because I think there's a lot of people who just go about their day, oh, I'm gonna go buy a new hunting rifle, I'm just gonna go down to the local gun shop and pick it up. Well, just wait until they walk down to their local gun shop and they said, where's your purchase permit? They're pissed. They're gonna be pissed because they took off the day from work or they left work early to go buy that gun and they don't have the purchase permit. Well, where did I get my purchase permit from? You have to go down to the sheriff's office. You go down to the sheriff's office. Oh, I'm sorry, sir, we only issue those on Mondays and Thursdays.
And that's why they're gonna buy it from their buddy Bill and tell the state.
They might do that anyways, but
And they're
again,
going to, because
there's gonna be a lot of them that will, but there's gonna be a lot of people who are gonna be ticked off about that. And I think that there's gonna be this realization too, that this crosses party lines. I mean, this impacts everything.
What you said, just real quick, what you said, it made so much sense, and you have to realize that they want us to be that way. That is what's forced this extreme polarization from one side to the other. The
it's a
media-
divide thing.
The media has just crammed it down our throat.
Yes, we have a question.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't know how many of you guys use Reddit or read what's on Reddit, but it's a pretty left-leaning site overall, and especially the Michigan subreddit. But you would be surprised that anytime one of these gun control bills gets talked about on there, because they link to articles talking about it, the comments, there's a very common theme. they say, I'm a Democrat, but this is not gonna solve the problem, it doesn't work, but I won't vote for Republicans because abortion, because trans, you know. So the issue is that for gun-owning Democrats, they're willing to basically take a dice roll on their Second Amendment rights because they prioritize these other issues more. So, and if you also look at the polling of something like the Bruen decision, I mean, overall, it was a very popular decision. It breached party lines. It was very popular, whereas Roe v. Wade overall was not a very popular decision. So you see that there are a ton of Democrat gun owners who don't like these stupid laws, but they're not single issue voters, and that's not their priority.
Would we all agree that the Democratic voters that are out there that are gun owners, would we all agree that in some of the stuff that just came down, that they may be upset with that too? Would we all agree with that? Yeah, so think about this, how many, in the state of Michigan, the whole state of Michigan, UP, everything, how many meetings do you think that we have tonight in all of Michigan of Democratic men and women sitting there having a meeting like this, trying to protect their gun rights?
Look, here's the problem though, it's not even a dice roll anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And I think you're right, they do look at it as a dice roll. No, the Democrats in Lansing, and this should not be a partisan issue, but they're making it partisan. They're gonna vote in unison, it appears right now, on every gun control bill you can think of, no matter what. But the Republicans, who we still believe are, as a whole, are all gonna be
They're
pro-gun.
pulling at the heartstrings though with these.
They'll pull some of
Yes.
them.
They're pulling at the heartstrings.
It was
with school
mainly
shootings.
in Lansing, it was a lot of the heartstrings. It wasn't the facts. You know, the facts are sure enough on the second, 2A community. It's on our side, but they were looking at the heart, you know.
But there is no
They're playing to win though, that's how you win.
But
That's
see,
how you
we
win.
Like in
didn't get-
journalism, they say if it bleeds, it leads.
We didn't get
That's
anybody
the
there
way you
in
win
a
at that particular game.
big
Yep.
rally, right? The one rally that was there was pretty small.
Look, guys, I went to Hastings, Michigan to a rally. Maybe some of you guys were there. It's really far from my house too, but I went there. There was 3 representatives there: Gina Johnson, Rochelle Smith, Angela Regas, a guy named Phil, who's part of the militia movement in Michigan, put it on. It was the most peaceful place ever. I had thousands of views on my videos, inviting everybody to come. And there were a few dozen people that came, which was awesome. I had hundreds of people say, I will never go to a Second Amendment rally again because of what happened on January 6th. You'll get on a list. They're gonna come after you. You'd have to be nuts to go. And it was the most peaceful rally you've ever seen. The sheriff, Dar Leaf, who's one of the most constitutional sheriffs in Michigan, he was there. It was completely peaceful, but 100 people said you'd have to be nuts to stand for the Second Amendment nowadays for everyone that would show up.
It doesn't matter because I
Just
was
saying.
not at the January 6th incident. I've never been to Washington D.C. in my life.
For the better.
Well, Senate Dems are blocking everything I try to put through because they're telling everybody that Jamie Thompson was part of the insurrection,
So there you go.
which is 100% lie, and they could be proven, and I want to, I
They're-
just
they're
did
literally-
speak out against it.
Are they saying
because
that?
they're
Are they
just-
literally saying that?
They are literally saying
Then you
that.
should probably seek on how you can sue them. If you can get that in writing that they said it, you need to find out about that. Because that's slander. Like, when you start hitting these people in their pocketbooks where it hurt,
That's
where
what
they
I'm
gotta start
that's
sweating.
a complete lie. I mean, you can say you're not gonna let nothing get passed because you don't like me, but you're not gonna say because I was somewhere I wasn't.
Hopefully that's been recorded, and then please, I would even donate a couple $100
That's
to
a
your,
good
to your,
point.
to your thing, seriously, because that's what's gonna change people, I think. I think the other stuff, we're just too reactive.
Well, you can't
And
see them in
battle
their
of
personal.
attrition, huh?
You can't sue them in their personal capacity, so we would have to change laws and.
I don't know. I don't know if that's the case or not. Maybe so. I
Well,
don't
that
know.
is the
Again, I'm
case,
not that.
unfortunately.
Because it's political.
So if they can say something, so if a person who's in a public capacity,
Oh, they do it all
they
the
can
time.
say something that's wrong about something.
Look, the libel or okay, look, if I were to libel you, the standard would be a lot lower, unless you're a public figure that I don't know about. Once you become a politician or public figure,
That is true, they can lie about you.
it is
They
almost
lied about me a lot.
impossible.
Oh, it's-
There's Supreme Court precedents, it's almost impossible to get libel or slander charges against a politician.
Randy, you have something?
Yeah, like I said, this is off topic and that, but, like guns that you get handed down from your dad.
Are you gonna be able to do that?
Are you gonna be able to do that
With the red flag?
with the red flag? Are you gonna be able to give that shotgun to your grandkid?
Yeah, it won't be the red flag, but it would be, they'll have to be registered.
But are you gonna just be able to give it to them, or are you gonna have to register
They
it?
have to be registered, yeah. Once they go
Even
through-
if it's a shotgun?
It doesn't matter, everything.
Okay, and the next one I got for y'all,
I don't know what happened with the time.
Democratic Club.
OMG, don't get me started on that.
Hey!
That money making
Why can't
son of
we stand up and open up a Republican club
Where
and
were you-
collect
where-
our own
hey,
money?
Fred, where was he 3 years ago?
Well, there is a. club in
Nobody can
Taylor.
answer that.
There's a club in
We were
Taylor.
trying to. Nobody wants to do it.
You know why? A lot of us.
That's a lot of money you
Yeah,
can make off
that's
of,
true.
I mean, by the time we go to work for 12 hours or 13 hours a
just wanna
day,
go home.
we just wanna go home. And you know, I hate to keep saying that, but if you look at it, you look at the people that are really out there, the people right here in this room are really oddities. They really are. The reason they're oddities is because they are able to go there on their own time. This man right here, he has a full-time job. He mows lawns for a living. And he still has the time to go there. That's an oddity. We go to work every day and we don't get that as an opportunity, but we should. We gotta learn how to make time for that because this is for our children.
Yes, that's why I ran for office for our children.
You're asking about giving your guns to your children, your grandchildren.
Right.
You may not have that as an opportunity.
Right. Well,
I mean, what happened? We're dead. So it
will.
doesn't
It's
matter.
gonna go to them.
Right. Before we, go ahead, I'm sorry, go ahead.
There was a, Brendan's looking into it.
Yeah.
Look, guys, this is so complicated. Even if you look at this stuff all day, there was one of the substitutes that came back on the universal licensing and registration scheme, where if it was an immediate family member, there was gonna be a provision. But that was on the substitute, but then they adopted another substitute within minutes, sent it over to the Senate, there's what's called a tie bar vote. I'm probably totally boring you guys, but this stuff can flip-flop so much.
It does too. It really does.
There may be an
Has anybody seen
exemption.
the actual paper?
There may be an exemption for the actual family members, but don't quote me on that yet. But they're all like really long, and it'll say like S2,
Yeah, I don't.
S5.
I would have to take it, and I do need to take another.
You didn't know what substitute was on there, and then when the Senate gets it, it tie bars it, they may adopt another. Sometimes the bill has to go back and forth
Like,
across the rotunda between the Senate and the House like 5 times.
Yeah, but I think a lot of that's intentional.
Well, of course it is, that's why we're calling this out.
I mean,
Yeah,
again,
it
it
is.
goes to the same thing. People need to understand that this is really, and I'm not talking about in a physical thing or going out and hurting anybody, but this is, it's a outright war on your personal freedom.
That's right.
And I tell you what, I work with plenty of guys that, and Mike knows, I will give them the information. And I'll say, here's the bill number, call your state rep, and I'll give them their state rep. And they still won't do it.
Just do your little work.
Because, sir, if they got a rag on their ass, wheels in the drive, and the whole beer in the fridge at the Super Bowl,
Yes.
what time's the game on?
What about the
What
guns
I say,
we
Greg?
bought years ago that don't even got paperwork on them? That we bought from Kmart on Telegraph Road.
Kmart.
Well, that was the way that
Kmart.
it was explained to us when we first heard it. So they're checking on that, and I will get back with you on that one.
Pre-1968, they didn't legally need a serial
Yeah.
number for
If
example.
there's no serial number on it,
no,
there's
on the
nothing.
368, there was, that was still, there's nothing you can do about that, yeah.
I've got one of my safety.
So you guys say Snarl, Snarl.
I remember.
We're watching it burn.
What? No, that new bill that she's talking about in Michigan, they're gonna say it's for the ghost guns, but that could take and make you have to register some of your highly collectible, or serialize rather, some of your highly collectible pre-68 guns.
Yeah.
We'll have to see what that looks like.
Of
course.
Yes, sir.
There was a concern that I had a couple weeks ago. I heard a rumor that a law might be made to be passed here in the state where firearms manufacturers are now liable for the use of their product. And the reason I'm worried about this.
Say that again, say that again.
Well, see, that was my concern. We have more deaths by automotive accidents than we do by school shootings or anything like this. I work for an automotive manufacturer. There are many in the state that employ many people. They could easily be drained dry from litigation, so is
That
it,
was in the bill,
It's
but
a
they
different
took it out.
standard, it's a different standard for guns, I mean, that's just a
Not
fact,
real.
but they are.
They kill
yeah,
people.
That was originally in the storage bills, they stripped it out because they had issues, Democrats didn't have the votes in their own caucus for it, so they stripped it out. It's gonna be introduced as a standalone bill, I think it already has been introduced as a standalone bill in the Senate. My understanding is that they don't have the votes potentially in the Senate right now. There's at least one Democrat state senator who's concerned about it.
Okay, one more, then we're gonna start wrapping it up real quick.
Yeah, just a question for the representative. Have you ever met face to face with Kelly and like tried to explain to her rationally why
Kelly
everything?
Green?
Yeah.
It would be a complete waste of time.
I have not.
Because I was thinking of showing up at her meet and greet on the 14th at the Novi Library. So you think that'd be a waste of time?
No, you should go there. Are you her constituent?
I'm not.
Well, I mean, if you want
I'd
to
still
go
like
there
to talk to her.
and record the conversation, but she is an anti-gun zealot who tries to act like she's a middle-of-the-road Democrat. That she just wants to pass common sense laws. She's basically said in committee hearing that she wants to ban.
Well, she's co-sponsored every bad bill.
Yeah, she's awful. She's awful on every issue.
But you've never met her or talked to her.
I've never had a personal conversation.
Okay.
I didn't mean to jump in there.
No, you're fine.
But literally, it'd be,
I mean, I get to look at her all
you
day.
may as well go bang your head against the wall.
Now, there's this one guy, Donovan. He's a representative from Detroit. He's a Democrat, younger guy, African American, has a young baby he always talks about. And as soon as he sees you, oh man, how you doing? How's the family?
Yeah.
Hope you have a good day. He's just a great guy. And you're like,
And then vote for
how do
gun
you
control.
vote like you vote? I mean,
Who's
this guy, Donovan, he's a younger Democrat from Detroit somewhere.
Yeah. Was it Joe Tate?
No, but I just was like, I mean, he always wants
And I
his
even remember,
college.
back when we were pushing constitutional carry, when Republicans were still in control, there were Detroit area Dems who were interested in the legislation because ultimately, who's getting all the 5-year felonies?
All the black Detroiters.
Is that happening in northern Michigan? No. It's happening in the urban centers of Michigan. And, you know, it was interesting talking to, actually Tyrone Carter, I was talking to Tyrone Carter about this, who now is apparently entirely on the gun control gravy train. But he actually, it was an interesting conversation I had with him after a committee hearing on constitutional carry on the issue. Like he actually voted to pass, or voted present, when the bill got voted out in committee. Now, of course, that doesn't necessarily tell you how he's gonna vote on the floor, but it kind of shows you that he's thinking about it.
Where, has things changed with women wanting to defend themselves?
No, actually, on our end of it, that's still one of our biggest, if not our biggest, clients. Ladies come in, we have ladies' day, as a lot of gun ranges do, and a good amount of ladies come in and buy guns constantly.
Is she the only woman here?
No, there's another woman.
Oh, there's one back there, awesome. There's somebody a lot taller than me.
She's really a woman.
Oh, it's you too. Okay.
That's my wife, 30 years.
It gives us opportunity because, again, you know, there's a lot of ladies out there, which really boggled my mind. During the whole COVID scare that was out there, we were selling, you know, 100, 108 guns a day.
I remember.
And insane numbers that was coming through here, and you're saying, okay, are you forgetting all about your rights when you're gonna go vote? And, you know, we do that education.
I was gonna ask you that too.
Yeah, oh yeah,
That
we
is
do
so
the education
good.
right on the floor with the customer and some of you guys that come in here, you know that. We also do the educational training because we advocate that. And then we do things like this because these are the people that are in the know. And again, I ask you to support them. I wanted to also, before we end tonight, I wanted to let you know that there's two other people in the house. August up here from GOA, and I have Kyle back there from FLP. Somebody mentioned insurance for guns, okay? This was specific tonight, specific to sell nothing, okay? Only thing I'm selling you is information, okay? I hate that Kyle even has the job doing that because we as American citizens, we have a constitution, state and federal, that says that we can carry a gun and we have the God-given right to protect ourselves.
That's right.
However, in the world that we live in, yep, you absolutely need to look into that. If you don't have that already, if you don't have that as an information, please get with him and ask him questions about that. I don't want to see anybody have to go to jail. I don't want to see anybody have to pay a lot of money.
You're gonna go for the night.
And then also, the gun groups that are in here, please support them, please. They are on the front lines, they keep us rotating, they keep us in the store, etc. Okay? When they want to take away your rights, they are who is protecting us in that. Okay? So thank you, everybody. Thank you for being here. This was way better than I thought it would be.